Like, it's like, oh, yeah, me.
Do our microphones work today without buzzing and everything else?
Next, the last two meetings have been without incident up here since your last meeting.
Okay, well, we're gonna try it then. So, what time do we have? We're going on 7:03, so let's begin. Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Today is February 1st, 2024. Call the meeting to order at 7:03, and we'll all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. There you go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'm going to try this again and say thank you, all seated. How about a roll call?
June Daly. Here. Angela Lou Millard. Here. Diane Jorsey.
Here.
Tim Zigmont. Here. Diane Rogan.
Here.
Noted as remote. Joan Veely.
Here.
Scott Hamel. I
Yeah.
understand someone said he was asked to be excused.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I just texted him. So
Okay.
he hasn't responded.
All right.
I guess so.
Well,
I'm not sure I'll say his last name right, but Michael is Pashuk. And I'm not sure he, has been sworn in yet. He just got appointed at this last week.
okay.
John Dyken
Present.
and Steve Biella Jr.
Okay, I think we have a quorum, but we'll seat, I'm gonna ask John to be seated. Well, actually, you know what, Steve, you're here, and I think, and just because you are here and not live, we're gonna go ahead and seat you for Scott Hamill. All right, thank you. Thank you, John. It's very nice.
Absolutely.
Okay, next up, we have the election of officers. As you know, every February, first meeting in February, we have to do the election of officers, so we'll begin. I think we open with do we open with the chair? I think we open with the nominations for the chair first. Jennifer, you have something to say about the chair? Or are you,
I'm happy to run the nomination of the chair if you'd like me to. I typically
Okay.
do that. in
okay,
Other
well,
places, though I don't think I've ever done it here.
I don't think you have.
no.
Jennifer Capola from Seal and D'Onofrio Corporation Council for the record. And yes, you will first elect a chair. Are there any nominations for chair of the
I'd like to
Planning and Zoning
nominate Joan
Commission?
Veely.
Okay, and do we have a second? Okay, are there any other nominations for chair? Okay, seeing none, I will take a vote. Joan Daly, Timothy Zigmont, Diane Jorsey,
Yes.
Joan Veely.
Yeah.
You can vote for yourself. It's
Yes, I
okay.
will vote for myself.
Andrew Millard,
Yes.
and we said Steve is sitting, right? Steve Biella? Okay, so congratulations, Madam Chair. And you are going to take over for the remainder. So you'll be running for vice chair and.
But you were doing such a good job.
Thank you.
Okay, and Brian Rogan. Oh, we forgot to ask Brian Rogan how he voted.
Aye.
And I apologize. I didn't see you, Brian.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone. And so I will ask for nominations for the next position, which will be the vice chair. And so do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Diane Jorsey.
Okay, do we have a second for Diane? June, okay. Any other nominations? Anyone else to be nominated? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call then. June Daly?
Yeah.
Tim Zigmont? Diane Jorsey?
Okay.
Joan Veely, aye. Andrew Millard?
Yes.
Brian Rogan?
Aye.
And Steve Biella?
Yes.
Okay, we have everyone. Oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna do the secretary next. I just want to make sure we closed out that vote. All right, so on to secretary. Nominations for secretary.
Nominate Brian Rogan.
Oh, my goodness, that's wonderful. Brian Rogan's been nominated.
I'll
Second.
second.
Second by Andrew Millard. Further nominations, any other nominations? Anyone else to be nominated? Hearing none, let's do the roll call. June Daly,
Yes.
Tim Zigma,
Yes.
Diane Jorsey,
Yes.
myself, Joan Veely, yes, Brian, Andrew Millard,
Yes.
and Steve Biella,
Yes.
and Brian Rogan.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Okay.
Oh, I,
So
okay, fine.
he's
He is going to
excused.
be excused. He did,
Thank you.
he also wanted to know, he did not receive a packet. So,
By email.
all right, just so that you know. All righty. Anyway, all right, so moving back to the regular business at hand, we have the approval of, oh, and congratulations and thank you, everyone. Approval of minute meetings for December 20th, 2023 and January 18th, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? I know that we're a little behind the eight ball here, with Fran's retiring. And if we want to continue to, and if it's okay to vote on the minutes or,
I didn't see the December minutes in my packet.
They were in the last packet and were postponed to this meeting this time.
well,
Okay.
I read them last.
do we want to take them separately then? Do we want to address the December ones that were in the last packet? Okay, a motion to approve by Mr. Zigma. Do we have a second? Okay, thank you, Ms. Daly. Further discussion on December 20th, 2023 minutes. Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved. Okay, January 18th, have we had a chance to review the 18th of January
Make a
minutes?
motion to approve the January 18th minutes.
Okay, motion to approve the January 18th by Mr. Zigmont. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Millard for the discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So moved. Okay, done with that. Now we have sort of a new formatting here. We have a receipt of new applications and scheduling of public hearings as required as necessary. We have application A, which is the application of Nicholas Morizo, care of Colliers International, prepared by attorney Tim Sullivan for I, an application for a site plan amendment approval for property at 554 Berlin Turnpike. Two, which is a two-part application submitted pursuant to the Connecticut General State statutes for 8-30G for a text amendment to create a new section of the Berlin Turnpike multifamily workforce housing development and a site plan approval, which is the second part of this, site plan approval for a multifamily housing development at 522 Berlin Turnpike. Okay. So this is all one part of one application that came in?
So the related applications, the application for 554 Berlin Turnpike, the first one listed, is a site plan whose drives are integrated with the plan for the multifamily development at 522 Berlin Turnpike. So you might want to consider them together. It was based on a conversation I had with Attorney Sullivan, who's representing them, is as was expected that you'd want to kind of see all aspects at the same meeting. They'll be handled as separate applications. They are separate applications, and should also be separate public hearings if you choose to have public hearings on the two site plan applications.
So-
But they do integrate with each other.
So.
You might want to consider scheduling at the same time. He did ask that scheduling not be until the March 21st meeting, if you were to schedule a public hearing
All right,
on the two site plans. The text amendment, of course, requires a public hearing.
yeah. Now, the first application, which is for the 550 to 554, you said it was a separate
That's the
driveway.
ABC building.
Okay, so we're only considering that building in that request, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second or the rest of it pertains to this other multifamily development that they want to put, okay. All right, so we can either break it out or all have it the same day. That's if we decide to have a public hearing, but I think that we should. I would think that that
Yeah,
would
I
be
think
big
Public
enough.
hearing makes sense.
Yeah, but, okay.
Okay.
So do we want to schedule it for a public hearing?
Can I
I'll
just
I'll make a
question?
motion to schedule that for a public hearing on March 21st.
All
Okay,
three
All
applications?
3 applications.
all righty. So we have a motion by Ms. Jorsey. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Biella. Further discussion on this? Then all those in favor?
aye,
Aye, okay. Those opposed, so moved. What? I'm sorry?
No, I had a question that just, that's voted on, don't worry.
Okay, you're good with that? All right, sorry. All right, item B is an application of Kevin Bundy for a site plan amendment approval for the new building at 127 New Park Drive.
Yeah, can
We
we,
need to
then go
revote.
back to that item again? I'm sorry, the
Oh.
last item.
Oh, the one we just voted on?
Yeah, the 830G applications.
Oh.
And the related ones at the applications, of Corey, of Nicholas Marazio. As being 830.
Do we have to undo the vote or do
No,
we
no,
have to
no, this
open
is
it
a
again?
separate item.
Oh, a separate
different-
item.
in
Oh,
addition to this, based on
oh,
past experience and considerations as well, is whether or not the commission would like staff to pursue a third-party review of the 830G applications.
oh, definitely. All right, but do we have to make that?
You'd have
do
to
we
make
have to-
that vote and ask staff to.
Okay, so should that become an item on the agenda? Do I have to-
It's all part of the same applications, those applications and receiving them.
Okay. All right, so should we have another consultant hired to help with the workload to take a finer comb?
Would it be Glenn?
Well, probably a third party. That might be Glenn, well, you have several that you're going to look at, correct?
Yeah, so we'd have both planning review and engineering review. Sometimes we can hire a firm that does both. We hired,
Oh.
in the last couple of applications, you've hired a planner for the planning review, and an engineering firm for the engineering review. We've had several, and do they need to?
Do we need to choose now? Okay,
But, I guess, what is your preference with regard to that? Is your preference to
Have both a planning and engineering review. Is that the desire of the commission?
I think that makes sense.
yeah,
Yes.
I think it does. I mean, to have just a third party to be able to go through the finer details of it. I think it's always good when you talk about a project of this size or potential size, that we should take everything into consideration.
So and if I may, I did also this morning again, speak to the town engineer, and he did concur that an engineering review would be preferred,
Yep.
So do you need a
requested from
motion?
his point.
Yes, a motion, yes, that
Okay.
would be appropriate. And you can combine the two, the planning and
Planning
the
and
engineering consultant,
Okay.
is fine in one motion. And then maybe Maureen could do some research on availability of prospective consultants and report back at the
Okay.
next meeting.
I think
right.
that makes more sense.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Steve, you have any questions down there? No?
We didn't open it back up, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
no.
okay, okay, then I won't.
I'll make a motion that we request a planning and engineering review to be done for the applications of Nicholas Marizio, care of Colliers International, for items I and II, numbers 1 and 2.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
a second?
All right, thank you, Ms. Millard. Further discussion on that motion? Then all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Thank you, Brian. Those opposed? So moved. Okay, now we're thank you. Application of Kevin Bundy for the site plan amendment for the new building at 127 New Park Drive.
You don't need to schedule that necessarily. Like,
No.
you don't need to schedule a public hearing. That doesn't require a public hearing. Inland Wetlands has their second meeting with regard to it on March 3rd. So I anticipate putting it on the agenda for March 21st.
will that be too much with the other one? I would say if you're gonna deal with all three of those, if you're gonna deal with, the Colliers International on the 21st, I would prefer not to have anything else in public hearing.
That's not a public hearing. That's a site plan.
Oh, site plan?
That's a commission business. We could schedule it. Not sure I have that date. I think I brought it up.
And how confident do we think that it'll make it through wetlands? Because we did drive out to that site at 127 Park, and it's a lot of water.
That's what I spoke to the engineering department and who oversees wetlands, and they expected that there's a likely decision by that date.
Okay, well, it's a pleasure of the commission. What do you think?
I'm looking. for
Might
the
as well
one-
get our business taken care of. Let's just get it done.
You want to put it on the 21st with the other stuff? Okay. Anyone else? I have an inkling one way or another.
I'm just looking for its update.
All right. Yeah, I never know. Sometimes it's the amendment that catches you. Okay,
So it has the calculations on our chart are correct. It has a must decide date of April 6th.
Oh.
So if there are conflicts with.
well,
it,
all right.
There's one other meeting that it can be. The April 4th meeting would be immediately before that.
Well, I got the impression from the commission, they wanted to go ahead with the New Park Drive on the 21st of March, or was I incorrect? No? That was the feeling? All right, so we have that in the motion?
Make
Did I-
motion,
I didn't.
the 21st.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Zigmont. We have a second by Ms. Jorsey. Do I have further discussion? Then all those in favor? Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? so
Aye.
moved. Thank you, Brian. Application for the zone map amendment approval of Anja Shika Harry's Real LLC to rezone the 1100 Berlin Turnpike and rear portion of 857 Worthington Ridge to a BT1 zone. Wasn't that originally a BT? Didn't we just change that zone?
There's a couple of lots in that block to the south, 3 lots that were had a rezoning. a
That's
few
where the
months
old
back.
The gas
The old
station was.
gas station is. This includes the property that the Dunkin' Donuts is at. and
Yes.
That plaza is for this new application. And a portion of Mr. Powers' property that's adjacent.
But it was,
Oh, next to.
So this is going.
Near it, yeah.
so it's near it, but not that old gas station.
Is this going down towards Middletown Road? I don't know what you mean.
It's at that intersection.
It's going north,
North,
so it's,
closer to Route 9.
so it's heading toward Dunkin' Donuts.
No, this is
It's
Dunkin'.
Dunkin'
This is the Dunkin' Donuts property and one adjacent to it.
Oh, okay.
With the building on it.
Yes. The
Okay.
the property that includes the Dunkin' Donuts, another building that I think is vacant. Still, it was built.
Yeah. it's
Yes.
vacant.
Yeah,
The veterinarian used to be there.
yep.
Yeah,
And Dunkin' Donuts is there, and a portion of a parcel that's at 857 Worthington Ridge that goes through to the turnpike. You know, it comes from Worthington Ridge, but its address is Worthington Ridge, but it comes through the turnpike.
Okay.
So it's, and then further south is the properties that were rezoned a few months ago.
so would the driveway to this parcel be the same driveway to Dunkin' Donuts in this vacant building? Is that,
That's the parcel they want to rezone. is the one with the.
The one that already has all the buildings on it.
Mhm.
Oh, so there's nothing new. Okay.
And
All
so
right.
it relates to the uses that can be, that are allowed uses in the zones or site plan and special permit uses in the zone,
Okay,
and pulling it up.
yeah, that's okay.
So you have, you've suggested earlier a date of March 7th.
Yes.
But there's a note, must open public hearing by April 6th. I'm wondering if you have a feeling for whether or not this, if it's scheduled for the 7th, if it would roll into the meeting on the 21st.
I'm thinking it's more likely that the item A that you scheduled for the 21st would roll to additional meetings than this rolling into that, or if it
Okay.
might be to clean up
Gotcha.
questions, but less likely to be something that takes the amount of public hearing time that the item A would.
Okay. I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for March 7th for the application for zone map amendment approval of Anya Skihan Carries Real LLC to rezone 1100 Berlin Turnpike and rear portion of 857 Worthington Ridge.
Okay, terrific. We have a motion by Ms. Jorsey. Do we have a second? I hear a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Further
Right.
dis,
Yeah, I'm pulling it up on the screen, and that's because you have the other zone name that's just below it. That also is in that same general area. Ramp. And going south, the property with Dunkin' Donuts. And to the property that we're
Brian,
already
excuse
rezoned.
me, Maureen. Brian, I think you're, okay, thank you. All right, go ahead, Maureen.
I'm sorry, so, this lot, and this lot were rezoned a short time ago, the one with the old gas station. In 2023, this is the lot that is referred to in item C that you just scheduled. Along with, I believe it's, the portion of this lot that goes from Worthington Ridge, but it's the portion that is adjacent. Is the one you just scheduled. And then, I'm not sure I'll pick the right lots on this case, but the next item to rezone 1309, 1251, and 1251 Berlin Turnpike and 115 Middletown Road is this lot at the corner. It's in the triangle there of Middletown Road and the Berlin Turnpike.
Yeah.
The one just north of it at 115 Middletown Road. And I think it's this one. Let me just make sure. 1251 is the one that was the Canby.
Yeah,
Back
the
way
Munson,
back
yeah,
when,
candy.
before
yeah.
me, but
Yep.
that's the story I've
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah, it used to be a
So-
candy place. It was delicious.
So that's
too.
the next, and that's because I was thinking that these all may have similar concerns and things that put, I'm suggesting the same date as the more northerly,
Yeah,
because they're in the same vicinity.
Can you go back to 1857 Worthington Ridge?
Hopefully.
I think you had it highlighted there.
yeah, that's goes right to the ridge.
So that's just the front portion of that property, I would assume?
They said the rear portion. I'm not sure exactly.
Well, it's a
where that
rear
line
of Worthington Ridge, the front of,
But the
No,
zone
but-
line comes through there. So without having the map in front of me, I don't think actually I think I had to request the map. They didn't submit it
Okay.
as to where that line would be. I don't think I got that submission yet, but we're going to imagine they'd be following the existing zone line, keep the zone line, but change the zone.
Okay,
that's
I
good.
see, I
We did
understand.
Talk about changing the R15 zone
Okay,
Talked about changing this BT2 with the SPDD to
Okay.
BT1.
all right, so we're looking at March 7th for that? And do we have the,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was, March 7th is a suggested date, also for this item. I'll make a motion, to schedule the application for zone map amendment approval of A. Pavana Kumar to rezone properties at 1309 Berlin Turnpike, 1251 Berlin Turnpike, and 115 Middletown Road to the BT1 zone, to March 7th.
okay. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Steve. Further discussion, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So
Aye.
moved. All right, thank you, Brian. And application for a site plan amendment approval by B. McPhail Solar Energy Development LLC for rooftop solar installation at Brightfeed, which is located at 76 Fuller Way. And
I understand that this is something that we're just receiving on the application. Is this a property that the town hall has received complaints on?
okay.
So actually, I was going to ask that you not anticipate a date at this time.
Oh, good.
I'm thinking the 7th or the 21st of March, but either way, to provide the applicant time to accommodate plan adjustments that they're doing to rectify rooftop air handling issues. Because solar is on the rooftop, it's all the same part of the building. It's not as though it's something different that wouldn't affect each other.
Do we,
So-
can we just hold off until their paperwork is a little bit
So-
more complete?
I'd ask that we can, well, it's more than rectifying their issues and us knowing that we have the plan in place for the complaints that are being
Yeah.
handled by, and it's actually not being handled by our agency. It's not. It's in the state's hands right now.
Oh.
But but we should have a plan by
Oh,
then
my.
for their rooftop units, and therefore then the solar, we know how the solar is accommodating the anticipated changes they have to make. So because it is a site plan item, I'd ask that you allow staff to put it on at the appropriate time. And or
Yeah.
ask them for extensions if needed.
Yeah,
in
because
order
if,
To
yeah.
hit their must date, because that will have that same must date of,
April 6th?
yeah,
6th.
April 6th, I guess. So just want to make sure that we just do it all in accordance with having good information at the time it comes to you.
yeah, I'd like to have a lot of things checked off before we have to actually consider it. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I'm
would-
not in a
I would,
hurry.
I hate to do anything on any property that has a violation.
Yeah,
in
especially if
way,
you're looking at the state. because I don't know.
To,
Yeah, so
you know,
can we just,
anything else,
Well,
basically, until they correct the problem that was there first.
well, should we then just turn it back to staff and say when they finally get all their,
When they
Ducks
get the
in a
duck in
row?
a row, come on back, yeah.
then they can
So
schedule?
unless they withdraw, the
Yeah,
commission would still be subject to the must decide date, but they'll hold that till we.
yeah,
know
until we
can-
must
until-
decide.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think that would be preferable from our standpoint to allow that to get.
Okay, that's great. Commission business, on to an extension of 90 days to record approved 3-lot subdivision for Conferowitz, 235 Weathersfield Road. We had an extension, go ahead.
So I have two things on this and the
Okay.
next one. I
Oh, yeah,
actually put the wrong date on the agenda.
go ahead.
For the folks that are here attending, the public, could you please not have conversations while you're in the room? Because I'm hearing a lot of conversations and I know that we will have a problem on the recording. So if people want to talk, please leave the room because I'm trying to listen myself to what's going on as well. And I know we have a commissioner that's online. It makes it very, very hard for him to hear
Okay,
what you're discussing, so the conversations have to stop.
okay,
Thank you.
terrific, appreciate that, yeah. as far as, I support the council with that. We do have to have, a clean record of this, okay? So, all right, let's continue. All right. So,
So
go
there's-
ahead.
There's a mistype, if anyone
all right, well,
checked my math. Extensions of 90 days bring the extension to May 2nd, not
Fine.
April 2nd,
Fine.
but only 60 days. I wrote them incorrectly. These extensions have a little bit to do with the maps for filing but more, as much to do with staff requesting of those applicants who have agreed for those extensions because we're working through review of those Mylars as they've come in before we get the chair's signature on the Mylar. We check them and there's been a delay and they need to have some modifications on at least one of them. So that's my request and neither is facilitated by the applicant, but they've agreed.
okay, so what do you need from the commission on that?
So extensions to filing their Mylars for their first allowed extension. Filing of Mylars are allowed 2 extensions.
Mhm.
They get 90 days to file it in the first place. And then there's the availability of 2 90-day extensions
Okay,
to file the Mylar for the subdivision.
so
So
we're,
I am asking the commission to approve the first 90-day extension
gotcha.
on both of these.
Make a motion to extend 90 days this application.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Zigmont, and that brings us to the 2nd of May. Is that correct, Tim?
And this is for item F, correct?
Yeah, May 2nd.
Item F, A, you mean?
A. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's, yeah, it messed up on my,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
That-
recopied my agenda, so the 235 Weathersfield Road subdivision.
yes. So the motion is by Mr. Zigmont for the extension, for the grant the extension. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Jorsey for the discussion. All those in favor?
I,
Those opposed?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, item B is an extension of 90 days to record a approved 4-lot subdivision at Pistol Brook Holdings LLC, 1709 Kensington Road. And the extension is being asked to allow to, again, is this supposed to go to May 2nd? Okay,
That's my math.
Make a motion to extend to May 2nd.
okay, we have a motion to extend till May 2nd. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, do we have any discussion? And Maureen, is this Pistol Brook, Kensington Road, is this the old Sunny Borders?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
And I believe, I haven't turned around, but I believe the applicant is in the room because there were some concerns about their activities
Okay.
on their site that were
yeah,
brought to the staff's attention today. So with the item on the agenda, now we're in planner comments, but they're here. So
okay,
I'd suggest maybe now.
all right. If you want to come down, can we ask you just a couple questions or concerns that we have? All right, thank you for being here. I'm familiar with the property there and I know it was an old nursery and I know that you guys are bringing in a lot of fill. My concern is that the soil underneath may be contaminated because it's spent probably 25, maybe even more than 30 years as a nursery. So you had a lot of pesticides, you had a lot of fertilizers, you had a lot going on out there. And I'm just worried about the contamination within the soil. So have you guys addressed that issue? Has the soil been tested?
Yes, it has. And we had testing on each
Can you
lot.
just announce who you are for our recording secretary? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gary Weber. I'm here to represent Pistol Brook Holdings on the
Okay.
property formerly known as Sunny Border Nursery.
Yeah.
Yes, we had testing done. We did have a phase 1 and a phase 2 done. There was oil tanks and things on there. All of it came back clean, except for we're over the state limit for residential with a chemical called dieldrin.
Dieldrin?
Yes, it was used to control Japanese beetles back in the 60s and 70s. It was actually required by the USDA to put on for the control.
Mhm.
And Probably almost every piece of property in Berlin, including residential's contaminated with it. And the solution for that is aeration and blending, mixing clean material with it to bring the level below
Down.
the state standard for residential. And I believe it was one of the conditions of our approval was to have the testing done and come up with a plan. And we have Mitchell Chester, Chester Environmental is our LP on the project.
Mhm.
And other than filling in the pond right now, we're staging some material there so that we can actually do a test of a commercial lot to see exactly what the ratio of mixture is going to be to bring that to the right level, which is really, it's regulated by the DEEP.
Okay. Is any of the fill being taken off? In other words,
No,
I see a lot of trucks going there.
yes,
And and I'll talk to you separate about that truck. But there's a lot of trucks going in there and they're dumping. And so my concern is that if you're not going to reach the level that you need, are you going to bring in more fill or are you going to have to take something out, have it cleaned and then brought back in?
there won't be any removal of material. The site is very low. And if you look at the site plan as we proposed it, it is going to require quite a bit of fill. And I don't remember the exact calculation off the top of my head, but we're in the neighborhood at like 20,000 yards.
Okay.
And the DEEP requires only the top 1 foot of soil meet the residential standard because the chemical that's there, dieldrin, isn't it doesn't have a lot of mobility. It doesn't move through the soil. It basically stays in the organic layer.
Okay. So are these, just sort of refresh my memory, are these well sites with septic or is this city water?
Well and septic.
Okay. So there's no concern about as you go farther down. As I said, this has been layers and layers of fertilizers and everything. So my concern is that can it work its way into the well water?
Dieldrin is not a chemical that has a lot of mobility to it.
But the other chemicals that were involved in,
Oh,
fertilizers and
the
stuff.
only one that was over any level was the dieldrin.
okay,
And it doesn't have a lot of mobility and they have 4 standing wells on the property. And before we closed on it, which we only closed on it yesterday,
oh, wow,
the wells were clean when we had them tested. And groundwater, surface water is not the same as the aquifers that we draw from for residential drinking wells.
okay. Andrew, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that I just want to bring to your attention, because you're one of those owners of property, and I do live in the area, and I just want you to know that, the trucks that are hauling this material are driving way too fast on the road. And we have alerted to the police department about it to slow them down. The way, maybe they're going past my house, which doesn't sound severe, but about 35 to 40 miles an hour. Now, when you have a dump truck that's going that fast, somebody's going to get hurt, especially we have a lot of joggers and you have a lot of people out there doing power walks or whatever. And we have a lot of cyclists as well. So I would appreciate it if you can get in touch with whoever's, I think Weber Company,
It's him.
Weber Construction, yeah, you. We need to slow those trucks down and to be a little bit more considerate. I know you're not driving the truck, but you
No.
need to talk to the drivers.
I did speak with them today.
Okay,
And-
good.
As they're coming up the hill though, because they are fully loaded dump trucks, they do maintain speed so that they can climb the hill. Because there's nothing worse than someone about an inch away from your bumper blowing the horn at you when you can't make a hill because you don't have enough power behind you.
Well, my
And
concern is,
It's our professional drivers that have been trained.
hey, listen, I'm not taking that from them.
Okay.
But what I am saying is that we're not going up a straight hill. You're going up a curvy hill. And you don't want those dump trucks to go out on 6 wheels or 8 wheels or whatever they got.
Well-
So I'm just saying,
I
And don't worry
appreciate-
about the people in back.
I do appreciate your concern. Those guys log probably 50 or 60,000 miles a year. And I'm gonna knock on wood that we haven't had any problems, and I hope to keep it that way for the rest of my life,
Yeah,
at least
Me
working
too.
life, maybe
They're
another
that
5
experienced,
years.
they should be able to shift that thing down and crawl up those hills with it shifted down.
yeah. But
It-
anyway,
There is a
It
process
is.
to do
I'll
that.
speak to them, but they are professional drivers.
just be courteous
They
to
are,
the
then
people
they
who
can
are
go
actually
up the
living in
hills
the
too.
neighborhood. Okay, Andrea, I think you're being patient. Go ahead.
Yes, my question is part of the process of dealing with this contamination is bringing in additional clean fill? You're going to rototill this together? Are you going to mix it together? Or are you just covering it with a foot of clean fill? So when you do the next test, it doesn't go deeper to see if this has been dealt with or not.
As far as dealing with the Eldrin, it has to be 1 foot below the surface, whether it's covered or it's tilled. There's areas where it will be covered, and there's areas that we will till it and aerate it, because I guess I'm not a chemist, but from what I understand, oxygenation and UV rays destroy it. So where it can be mixed, it will be, but the areas where it's going to be under more than a foot of soil, it's not a concern of the scientists at the DEEP. So therefore, it's not a concern of mine either, because what it's worried about is it's a contact chemical. It's not something that really moves through the ground, but you don't want to be digging or playing in a sandbox with the Eldrin. The material itself, if we were to pile it up and use it, it could be actually used under a driveway. It could be used under a slab of a basement. It's just a contact chemical. And I don't really know all that about it, but I did before I spent the money and paid for this property yesterday. I made sure I got an education on what you have to do with the Eldrin. And it's something that's a very manageable thing. And if we tested your yard, we'd probably find the Eldrin.
Oh, you probably would, because I live right down the
Yeah,
road. So when they're driving up that hill so fast, they're going right by my house.
I'll make sure
I-
they
I-
blow the horn and wave.
No, they won't get a wave back. My concern there is when you say that, what happens if somebody wants to put a garden in here and they start to rototill and go deeper? They're going to dig this up and put it into their garden?
Ma'am, I don't make the regulations that we have to abide by, whether it's the commission or the state, but we have to follow the DEEP. They're the lead on this, and we hired a professional engineer so that we don't make a mistake and we do it properly. I know this is an issue that's come up in town before. It happens wherever there was an orchard, wherever there was a nursery, wherever there was a farm of any kind. And let's face it, everybody here is living on a house or a piece of land that was probably farmland before.
Mhm.
This is a regulation that's relatively new. Before this came into being, they just built houses, and then you had your garden with the Eldrin in it. And now at least we recognize it, and we're trying to fix the problem according to what the professionals laid out for us.
Okay, I had one more question. I can't think of what it
Okay,
was because
well,
you
let me
threw me
know.
off on that one.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Ken.
Well, this is basically the same place, problem that was property across the street, that the town of Berlin now owns. That was Apple Orchard and we were gonna use it for fields and stuff, and now we can't use it. And we put some trails in there, the walking trails,
Oh,
but that's all we did, okay? But we can't use the property, the same material. I have a question because it was brought up by the applicant that property is above the aquifer that feeds Elton Well. And I would suggest that our water department, water and sewer, whatever they're called now, get involved in this and make sure that our main source of waters is not getting affected by anything that was on that property either. So if you're stirring it up, are you stirring it to get to the water, or I'm sure the DEP knows what they're doing maybe, but but I would like to see things be in place to address the issue and make sure that our water doesn't get thing, because we are treating our water a lot now from Melton Road, more than we ever did. And probably don't want to treat for anything else either, too.
Can I just let you, what I discovered, because it wasn't my property a month ago, and I could care less if it had poison on it. It wasn't my problem, right? So I looked into it, and the last thing I want to do is invest money, try to build houses and really set up myself for retirement on something that is just going to be a complete loser. So I did a little research. While the nursery was up and running, because they use pesticide, it's a requirement by the state to test the wells if you have more than 2 employees every 6 months. So there's a long list of well testing of the 5 wells. Now there's 4 operational. There were 5, and they were tested regularly, continuously, and they're right down the street from you. And this is to ease your mind, but those wells always came back clean, and it was for the safety of the employees. And when I found out the rigorous testing they did, it really did ease my mind, because the LP said, "Oh yeah, we can fix this." And I'm like, "Well, what about this? What about this?" And he said, "This happens all over the state. This is a recurring problem. Any place there's been agriculture, and you just deal with it. And these are the steps, and it's not that difficult. We're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's a pretty simple process." If it was a small enough piece of property, he told me, "Go buy OxyClean, spread it with a fertilizer spreader on there, stir it up. Back in a week, it'll be clean," because of the way the UV rays and when it oxidizes. And he definitely eased my mind before I put my hard-earned money up. I mean, we're having a lot of conjecture and speculation here without a lot of facts and what ifs and what could be. But when we were here, we had a conditional approval upon testing and dealing with it according to the state of Connecticut standards. And now I'm getting a tone like, well, we're going to go to another level, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I don't think that's our job as residents. That's what we have the state DEEP for. And I'm not suggesting I circumvent them. I'm saying, let's get them involved. Let's send the testing out. I spoke with Maureen about it this week, and I'm not looking to get away with anything or do anything. I'm looking to set myself up so that in 5 or 6 years I can retire comfortably. And I wasn't really looking to take a chance on something. And I thought it was a pretty good place. I love the neighborhood. And who knows, maybe I'll be one of your neighbors.
Okay, that would be
But
great.
the nice part is, let's look at the positives. Place is going to be clean. It's going to be neat. It's not going to be a hellhole anymore. There is more garbage there. I found more garbage today than I found the last time I walked through. And the dumpster trucks will be coming in a week or 2 now that I own it, and I'm going to clean the place up, and it's going to look a lot better. And I'll keep in contact with the zoning people. And, they called me today. We responded immediately. I didn't do a lot of things earlier because I didn't own it until yesterday.
Okay, and
And-
that includes the riprap that should have gone down on that.
It's there.
I saw the pile of it today. Did you
Yeah.
finally spread it? Did
It's
they
there.
finally?
It's done. It's
So,
done.
okay, so they
It's done.
did.
I had a problem on another job. That was there delivered at 7 o'clock this morning. It was going to be done. And I had an
Yeah,
issue on a
that's-
job that I had to go to. And
Yeah,
life, when you own a business, it's rankings of priorities and a little bit of mud on the road that I can sweep up.
yeah, I think that.
I had an
yeah.
emergency, and I
yeah.
did. I swept the road also.
Oh, you did sweep the
Yes.
road. Yeah, I'll go by that and see. June, and then if you have a question, I don't know.
And bear with me because I learn along the way. So I appreciate all your research on that, D. Eldrin, and your process to help with that correction to bring it within the guidelines. And you had mentioned building homes there. And I don't know if that's going to be below water level or not. So I'm assuming you're going to dig out basements and so forth, so that ground will be disturbed. Is there an ongoing concern in the future that you need to have it retested? Is that something that has to be communicated to the new buyer of the property if that ground is disturbed below that 1 foot level that's being improved?
Why they picked the 1 foot level was the Eldrin doesn't move. It doesn't have mobility. So it generally stays in the organic layer where there's a lot of silts and fines, your topsoil layer. And as I was telling, as I did with the research, I found that If it was, there's a lot of stone on this property because he put processed stone everywhere. There's not a lot of topsoil. So when we do a yard, it's immediately going to have 6 or 8 inches of topsoil put on it anyway. When we strip that stone off, it can be used in the basements. It can be used under driveways. It's a contact chemical. So anywhere we disturb or anything, the biggest concern, if there was any here, would be to make sure that we're clean enough that if someone does want to have a garden, that's where they would come in contact with it, or if they were playing and rolling around on their lawn. And those are the areas of concern, and that's what gets tested.
Here's another question.
June, I'm sorry, follow up?
So as I watch homes get built around me or years ago, they dig the basements out, they put in the basement walls, and then they backfill that hill of dirt. So that ground is being disturbed and then just smoothed out on the surface.
Yes.
So I guess it seems like there might be potential for that to come from a foot below back to the surface just because you're spreading it out again.
Okay, maybe I wasn't clear. Let me start again. So the Eldrin doesn't have a lot of mobility. So when they spread it, like on your lawn, your fertilizer, it goes down, the roots start using it, and some of it penetrates. But most of the nitrogen, the potassium, and everything in your fertilizers are in the top 6 or 8 inches, and they call it the organic layer. And if you dig a hole, like when you dig a basement, you can see the different strata of the earth as you're digging through. This piece of property has about probably 16 to 25, 30 inches of a sandy, like almost a loamy subsoil. And then it goes to a very porous, almost structural quality gravel. And anything in the gravel, you dump water on it, just kind of disappears. We had excellent perk results. Anything that was below that would have leached out already. The solution, if it's in groundwater, is to let the groundwater purify itself over time. There's no real remedy for it, but it's not a moving chemical that we're going to dig down for a basement 8 feet and it's going to be at the 8-foot level. We're dealing with the top 1-foot level or so, because once we get that clean, then you don't have to worry about it. It's you've mitigated the reaction to the surface and to people and to pets or whatever. And like I said, any farmland you have, any apple orchard, anywhere you go that's rural, that starts to get developed, this is something new, testing for dieldrin. I probably have dieldrin in my yard. I built on an old nursery and there was no testing required. And I have a raised garden. That was my solution to life because I don't know what's in the soil. And I just put in a raised garden. And but I think we're going to deal with it and we're going to get positive test results. I spoke with Chester Environmental. He met me out there. We had Bill Jackson do the preliminary on it. And this is not his specialty. He's an environmentalist. He did testing. He tested a bunch of stuff for us. But Chester Environmental has done multiple projects like this. And I met him out there and I asked him the procedure, and I'm sharing it with you. And if I find out something new and you want to know, I'll be happy to share it with Maureen and she could tell you about it. There's no mystery to what I'm doing. There's nothing, we're not working over there at night when you can't see what we're doing.
And that was not the intention of the questions that the commission has. It was
Okay.
just sort of, we need to understand that because this is potential several different houses, we want to make sure that the neighborhood remains safe. And it was a concern because of the history behind the land, more than the history behind you or your
Right.
business
Oh.
or whatever.
I hope you don't think my saying about the water department and stuff, well, it's nothing against you or anything else. We asked for the test of the property. You tested it and you came up with some substance that I don't know. You're explaining it to me now, and I'm not a scientist, so I don't know that either. But my concern is the water department gets told about it. And if the water department says, not a problem, it's not a problem. You know,
It would
what I
be
mean,
this.
maybe they want those wells tested a couple more times or whatever, but just because there's the aquifers there, that's all. You know, and it's not anything against you or anything else. It's just something that came up on.
Okay, Diane?
I just have a comment and so just for clarity, I work for DEP, but I don't work for the remediation division. I work in the pesticide division. And so what I know of Dieldrin is that Dieldrin is a product that was banned maybe in the 60s or 70s. It's been out of use for many, many years. And so what you're saying is true, that the Dieldrin bonds to the soil. And if it was prone to movement, it would have moved by now. Right?
Yes.
So my recollection with the Bradley property when the town purchased that was that the concern was the airborne particles,
Mhm.
that there were precautions in place to minimize the dust and keep the dust down, to keep the dust from migrating off of the construction areas. So I think if anything's a big concern, it would be the movement of dust during your project. As you're talking about sampling, I'm thinking that, okay, well, you probably had some hot spots. The entire property is probably not all contaminated to that same high level. So you have some hot spots that you have to deal with so that you're going to be diluting through the movement of soil across the entire property. So to kind of spread that hot spot out, right? So.
And bring it to the surface so
Mhm.
that the oxidation can do what it does.
Yep.
And
Mhm. Okay.
after I did the research, I thought it was going to be this big giant thing. And when he told me what I had to do, I was like, that's it. And he's like, that's all it takes. It's just time, a little bit of energy, a little bit of time.
Brian, any questions online?
I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, so, so you're looking for the approval so we can give them a 90-day extension?
Yeah.
And then, so that would bring it out to May 2nd, right? So,
Absolutely.
pleasure of the commission. Thank you for participating, by the way. All right.
Yes, they've been voted on.
Yeah.
They have been.
Okay, I'm sorry. We had the first, we had the second, so I guess further discussion on that. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, so moved.
Aye.
All right. Wait a minute.
I thought we had voted.
No.
I did not have you as voting.
No, we didn't,
no.
not on that one. I need a
Sorry,
motion.
second
Aye.
discussion.
I need a motion.
You had a
Did the
motion. It
You
was,
had the motion, you had.
it was
Who had the
Tim
motion?
and I.
Okay.
Made the motion, I seconded.
All right, I had that for item A, but not item for B. I was looking
Thank
for
you
item
that
B.
extension.
Okay, all right, so all those in favor, aye, we're done.
Aye.
Okay, on to public hearings.
So we have
So
a call.
we have a call to the public hearing, which Diane will read because our secretary is home. Okay,
Town of Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission Notice of Public Hearings. The Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings at their regular meeting on Thursday, February 1st, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Town Council Chambers, Berlin Town Hall, 240 Kensington Road, Berlin, Connecticut. Interested parties may join the meeting and participate in the public hearings in person or remotely as provided below. A, proposed text amendment of Ed Egazarian to amend Berlin zoning regulations. 6G2, Berlin Turnpike 1, BT1, site plan uses with new subdivision to allow teaching the art of dance and with amendment of planning and zoning staff to include schools operated for profit, studios of dance, photography, graphic design, painting, and similar artistic endeavors. B, proposed text amendment of FHI Studio and Planning and Zoning staff to amend Berlin zoning regulations, section 11Q, special regulations, housing for elderly persons, and 2B, definitions to support affordable housing development for elderly persons, and modify the definition of affordable housing. The applications and related meeting materials are available at the Planning and Zoning Department, Berlin Town Hall, 240 Kensington Road, Berlin, Connecticut. Remote access to this meeting is available by Zoom video conference at the following link, which is provided in the posting, along with the meeting ID, passcode, and other required information. Data and toll charges may apply. Dated this 11th day of January 2024 at Berlin, Connecticut, Brian Rogan, Secretary, Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission. And this was run in the New Britain Herald Legal Notices Classified Advertising on Monday, January 22nd and Monday, January 29th, 2024, and posted with the Berlin Town Clerk on Friday, January 19th.
Okay, thank you. All right, the first item is actually a special permit with a site plan application for Thomas Kokomo Brothers for a proposed garden center use of Walpole at 398 Chamberlain Highway, MBL 8-3-12F-6A, which is a property of the DAT Investments LLC in the R21 zone. Okay, hi, Mr. Kokomo, how are you today?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Good evening.
How are you?
Oh, good. How about
Before I get-
yourself?
Good, thank you. Before I get going, I just want to comment on the last one. Gary is he's a gentleman. He's gone, so it doesn't, and integrity. You guys, he'll do what's right over there.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So noted. All right.
But now 398, I want to be quick. I just want to, I think I want to reel it in with a proposal to you, to the commission. And of course, let the neighbor speak and not put any pressure on you, let you deliberate and think about it and then come back to me. But the reality is this property, as we discussed, has failed. I don't really want to get into, like you spoke before, conjecture and things of that nature. It did fail. It at one time had a broader use. A few years back, the former planner reeled in that use, restricted a lot of use, use to the property. And the bottom line for us is really, does this commission that looks out for the town of Berlin think that this use is an appropriate use for that location? Now, Caitlin and I looked it over the other day. Maureen had to excuse herself, and this use for a garden center sits in R15, R21, R43, and has to have a minimum of 1 acre, but it has to be on a state highway. And that's really and have, some other miscellaneous things like architectural or aesthetically looking like the neighborhood. So it fits here. It has 2 acres. And I really think that we shouldn't get into wetlands because staff is aware and the appropriate commissions will get involved on wetlands if perhaps you approve it. It's already been on the record that they want to review it. I think your purview and Madam Mrs. Capola will confirm that if you do approve it, you can put restrictions on it to appease the neighbors because they may have legitimate concerns, and I appreciate that, right? But the bottom line for me is I own it, and I either think it becomes a garden center, a full garden center, like a typical garden center, not one with restrictions. So if you think that's viable for that location, which your regulations allow for, then I think you can do what's appropriate to take into consideration for the neighbors. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm at the point where, and one of the neighbors said, if so be it, if it's houses, and I feel the same way. So I really, I'm going to rely on you. It doesn't, at this point, it doesn't make a difference to me. I told Maureen, I'm not being compensated by Walpole. They want to be there. They wanted to potentially open up a retail operation. I think it's a very good um, business, and I understand it goes along, as Ms. Jorsey said, you have to, it goes along, it has to be a garden center first with an accessory use. I get that. And what my intent would be would to try to run a garden center until I could find someone who knows and to operate, so Winterberry Gardens, to come in. And that's where I'm at right now. No one wants to look at, I mean, Maureen can tell you she's had calls for a year from multiple people of what to do, but everyone that is in that space knows that it is restricted and you can't do much. And with that being said, you can't be profitable, and therefore, why would you waste your time and energy to lose money, as Mr. Weber said before? So I appreciate, and I won't take it personal, or you're working for the best interests of the town. So if you really think that, but I will be back in front of you in 30, 60, 90, 120 days if you say, hey, Mr. Kokomo, doesn't work here. I get it. Then I'll be back in front of you for a subdivision, because that's the next, what's allowed in the zone. So, and I'm not, there's not a threat, because it's, I don't, there's no threat. I don't think you would even see a threat there. So I think
Okay.
that it's either one or the other, and we need to move on. I think
So-
as a town.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then. So is this parcel of property in front of the Wetlands Commission?
So it's not, because until there was a complaint from one of the neighbors, Jim had called me and said that either if the I'm going to make a recommendation to staff, or to the on the comments, that we need to have a wetlands soil scientist go out there and flag it. So that's on the record. I believe Maureen can show you. And I've, in advance, since the last meeting, because of your concerns, I already retained a soil scientist. He's been out to the site. He hasn't flagged anything. He's done an overview. And whether it's what it is today or what it is tomorrow, no matter what, we need to go to wetlands.
Well, that's my point. So I'm just wondering if you have your application in with the wetlands.
No, because really, I mean, I don't know which, if it's the cart before the horse, or, but I think, and I'm not sophisticated enough to know what is the correct protocol, but when we come down to it, I believe the protocol is this use correct? And if you say, you know what, no, the use is, we like this use, and we only like it this way that former planner Ms. Riggins put in there, then okay, then I withdraw my application and I present a subdivision application, and then I do through the appropriate steps, wetlands, planning and zoning. If you say to me, we think we can expand the use as a garden center, then I go through the site, then we do the site plan approval, you know, as Tim said, needs parking striped. It needs a fence with some trees, and I'll make my application to wetlands. But at this time, right now, the wetlands soil scientist said I can go out there and give you, but we need the snow cover off, and I got to do some samples. So maybe another 30 days would be best. So we're here, we're in limbo, and I really, and I don't, and I might be wrong. Maybe it's not appropriate, but I think it's appropriate to know if you, where the Planning and Zoning Commission, and this is a zoning question, I guess, is this an appropriate site for a garden center? And if it's not, so be it. Fine.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Thank you. Any other questions right now for the commission before we go to the public?
Well, Walpole again, and I'm sure that's not part of your, you want to make sure application happens, but the Walpole is a secondary. But are they still want to do a retail outfit, basically selling their wares, their swing sets and stuff like that? Or do they want to have that stockpile and take stuff in and out on property on that greenhouse that you said they were using to stock stuff in? You know, it's a little different if it's those machines are moving around and stuff like that, or they're selling their wares. And, I think selling those wares are part of like a garden center. You know, I mean, the stuff for the yard, you know, so it's part of like a garden center. So, you know, I wouldn't have a problem with if that's what they were doing, just selling their retail goods. you know.
So I read you an email last meeting and I forwarded that email from their vice president of operations. And their vice president of operations said that if we're approved, we would be like to have a retail operation. Now, he didn't say we will, so I mean, language, but I believe again that this commission can say we can have a Walpole type of operation as an accessory use only if there was a retail portion to it. Right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where I think you can really define, oh, sure, we'll allow you to install fences and mailboxes, but you need to sell them on a retail aspect.
Right.
Right.
Right, yeah, that's.
Okay, that was a question. So we are in the public hearing, so let me ask if there's anyone here who wishes to address the public, address the commission regarding this application. Now would be the time to speak. Does anyone want to make any comments? Yes, okay. John, yep. And of course, we are familiar a little bit with the property here, as this is all part of a continuation, so we assume that the remarks are going to be on top of the ones that you've already given. Okay,
John O'Brien, 12 Vineyard Drive. Nursery actually is in my rear yard. And Mr. Kokomo, it said about Walmart. Walpole. Okay, but anyway, they closed up their place in Farmington, which you can agree. They closed the place up in Massachusetts also. So they moved their operations down here. They have their mailbox. They have their sign out and they have a larger sign in the rear yard they haven't put up yet. The reason they took that side of the building, and Mr. Kokomo was correct, because it has a showroom in it. So they're gonna retail out of there. So there's gonna be cars coming in and out. They're gonna have to have more stock in the backyard, rear yard, which is a mess right now. I have pictures. You know, not only that, but you're gonna have trucks coming in and out. You're gonna hear them backing up when we're sitting on our deck in late spring, summer, beep, 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 beep. We're gonna hear the forklifts going. We're gonna see all the trash because when they go out and do a fencing job, they just don't leave their old fencing there. They take it and where they dump it? In our backyard so we could see it, in dumpsters and everything. Right now they're filled and you look over and you see 10-yard dumpster all full. You see a bright pink one that's filled and everything. So picture yourself by this house, R21, residential area, was never like this until the Kokobos took over. Now they made it into a dumping ground for us, a trucking outfit and everything. So you could believe what you want. Come by and take a look at it. Look at all the hoops that the plastic were cut off. The wetlands that was filled in by parking lot scrapings, could be road scrapings. That was the first pile. Another 10-yard dumpsters. A fill came back in, and again, like I told you last time, Michael Kokomo was on the tractor, and he's filling right up to the brook. You know, and I can remember even when the tracks broke on the tractor, they had to call somebody to come out and repair the track on the tractor. Correct, Michael? Correct? You don't remember, you were on the tractor, you couldn't use it anymore because it wouldn't go.
Hang on. You got, John, you got to address the commission with your concerns and we can't have, we can't.
Track broke on the right hand side.
Oh, okay, well, I wasn't there, so I can neither comment or.
But anyway,
but to your point,
I'd like to have these pictures back.
no, they can't come back. Yeah, they go into the file. Evidence, yeah. But you did, I think you already submitted pictures last go round.
These basically were pictures that I had where it really gets flooded into our rear yards. Elno Hall's old house that never got water.
Yeah,
They had to go out and get a sump pump.
yeah, you had mentioned that last time, exactly.
What happened is with all the fill that they filled right up to the brook, and I talked to Jimmy Horrible also. You know,
Yeah. Well, I
they
think,
should have soil tests because being a nursery, Mr. Weber brought up some interesting points also. Being a nursery, they used to water the flowers all the time,
mhm,
chemicals. All those chemicals went into the ground also. So if he's talking about Walpole, that's gonna be a construction company going in our rear yards when it's basically R21 residential housing. That's what we want.
all right, so that's, I'm coming down to your point now. So what you're asking the commission is I'm under understanding that you are not for a retail garden center. However, you would support the idea of Mr. Kokomo subdividing for R21 zone.
Yes.
Okay,
And
that's what I
would
needed to
also-
know.
Because
Okay,
up until this point,
all right,
we had no complaints. Now the neighbors had it. Devaluing our houses.
okay,
Go to sell your house, you're not getting the money out of it with the
Yeah.
junkyard in the back. It's
Okay.
trash, literally trash. They never cleaned it up. They said, oh, Mr. O'Brien, we're gonna clean it up. Never did. They
Okay.
moved the junk from one side to the other side.
okay. So what you're asking for is the commission to support the idea of housing as opposed to, okay, that's what I need to know.
Nurseries, you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you buy. cheap.
Okay.
That's why they don't work anymore.
All right, well, thank you for that. Anyone else who wishes, okay, yes, yeah,
Mr. O'Brien, I'm just trying to follow along. Are you talking about the prior owner was, this activity was under the prior owner, or is Mr. Kokomo owning it now,
Since.
separate from the prior
since-
entity?
no, Since the Kokobos took over. It was filled in just before they took full ownership, but they were basically partners when he filled it in. So they could extend that nursery out farther.
So the property was foreclosed on sometime last year and Mr. Kokomo now owns it. My understanding was he was like a silent partner in the prior company. Are you talking about that period of time or are you talking about
Silent
since
partner
then?
Wouldn't be on a track.
Well, I'm not using a legal term here, but in any event, are we talking,
that's not the point.
is it since the foreclosure went forward and now Mr. Kokomo owns it and
It's
it,
gotten worse.
how?
How the fencing company being in there with all the trash that's there, the dumpsters, because again, I go to your house, I put up a fence. You take my old fence away, I say I do 200 feet of fence. It comes down in our backyard, so we can look at it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You, anyone else? Yes, okay.
Hey, my name is Dolores Nye and I live on 4 Vineyard Drive. And my property backyard runs into the looking on the Chamberlain Highway facing, it's on the left-hand side, okay?
Mhm.
Getting kind of weary having to come back here. I mean, the property has been cleaned up somewhat, but like John said, they moved it over to the backside, okay? When I first bought that property and the owners that had it after as a garden center, I had no problems. Everything was nice. I had no complaints at all. Okay. And then Mr. Kokomo bought it. Now, I don't know what responsibility does, it's in his name because he told me he owned the property. Is in his name now, the property, but he's a silent partner in the business. Is that what I understood?
Hold on, the question's got to come to the,
Well,
through the commission.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so you're curious to see whether or not Mr. Kokomo was a silent partner? and
He
when
said
the-
he was a silent partner,
Oh,
but the property was in his name. So as a silent partner, but owner of the property, he did have an obligation to be responsible for it. Like if somebody got hurt or something happened, they would go to the owner. Am I correct or am I wrong?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I would say that it goes to the owner of the property, but is there a point? I mean, in other words, where are we going with this?
He never went there. He never bothered going there, but John's took a picture of him on the property. Well, anyway, that's one thing, but, what I'm concerned about is if he wants to have a retail, what kind of retail? What does that entail? Is that selling the fencing? People going into like a store and buying it? Because they're just renting it now. The company is just renting it now. Or he says a garden center, but how long down the road is a garden center gonna get there? Following year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? I mean, you know, you gotta, if you're gonna say eventually, how long? You know, I mean, this could go on for 10, 15 years as just like a warehouse for all the stuff. And then he said something about they want to build some kind of building. What is that going to be? Like a little, kind of like a little half of those like metal huts or something? Or, I mean, it's
I know, I don't want.
people that live there. I know they owe for the town, but it also has to have a responsibility for the people that live there because we pay taxes here. And we have to be happy in our homes. We have to feel that what taxes we pay, that we're getting, what I mean, something out of it and not stress. And that's what I have now. So there's a responsibility on both our ends, I think, to keep the town, and the people have to have responsibility also.
Yeah,
And that's how I feel. So, I mean, it would be nice to have a little subdivision there, or something that is much nicer, you know.
so let me pose the same
I
question.
just want to look out my backyard, okay,
I,
my family room, and see pretty.
yeah.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, so I would surmise that your feeling or your leaning would be, given your choice, you would prefer to have houses there
I would
as
prefer-
opposed to have any
Right.
kind of
Right,
gardens.
whatever we decide, I would prefer to have the houses there, but they decide to have it the other way. Like I said, I want to look out my
Yeah.
yard because I bought it when it was pretty. If I had known what was going to happen down the road, I never would have bought that property,
Okay,
you know, for my home.
yeah.
And
No, I can appreciate that. And you do have a right to have, you know, to know that the town is looking out not only for developers, but for you too.
right,
Because it's not like you, you know, you're gonna pack up in the middle of the night and leave and go set up tent
Right.
someplace else, you know?
because if I left my property the way it was, there's blight laws, and that was blight.
Yeah.
That was blight.
Mm. Okay,
Okay.
all right,
That's all I
thank
have
you
to
very
say.
much.
Thank you.
No, no problem. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. And then, well, let me go to this young lady here and then we'll get to you, Chris, okay? So go ahead. Thank you. No. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Erica Ziza and I live at 374 Chamberlain Highway, which is the side of the garden center with, guess you guys all know, with the pool, I guess it was referred to. And I just wanted to say, when we bought our house, which was about 20 some odd years ago, it was nice to have the garden center right next door. rather than subdivisions and all kinds of, we have so many houses in town. And it was such a nice little area to just, people would walk by the garden center, people would go in it, and it was just very nice. We personally would like to see something like a garden center in there, not fully like the fencing company. But if there were just a little adjustment to it, where it was more plants being sold, maybe that combination type thing with the fencing company and with a garden center type thing. That would be nice, as long as it didn't get over commercialized. That's what we're afraid of, where you're going to have all of the dumpsters full, the trucks coming in left and right. I mean, Allen Hall had, you know, a little bit of a landscaping company out of there, but nothing major or huge. We were approached at one point, my husband and I were approached while we were outside by an actual landscaping company that was interested in buying the property back when it was owned with you and a partner, Mr. Kokomo. And
Oh, to the commission.
and
Okay.
yeah, and so there was someone interested landscaping. I can't believe that there's no one that would possibly want to go in there and do a little landscaping company or a little garden center type thing. I mean, putting in a couple of houses right there, it's a tight area. It really is. And a lot of it is filled in with the wetlands, which, I mean, you can see on the maps. It would just be a shame to just toss in a couple of houses when it could be just a nice enough small little business like it was.
Okay,
So we'd like that to be considered.
okay.
We
Fair
don't
enough.
want it changed in a huge amount to be totally commercialized, and then someday down the road it gets sold and there's a Dunkin' Donuts put up there. That would be ridiculous. But we're just looking to see if you.
And what do you have against Dunkin' Donuts?
Listen, I mean, I give enough business.
I'm
over
kidding,
there.
I'm kidding you, I'm kidding you. Just having a little fun, making sure everyone's awake.
But that's what I'm saying, is just to make sure that it doesn't go full on commercial down the road, but if it just stayed like it was meant to be,
Yeah,
with a few small exceptions, maybe selling gifts, maybe
yeah,
like they had done prior.
yeah, with the jewelry or whatever and the
Yeah,
fountains. you
Exactly.
know.
And it was very nice to have a little gift shop in there and have a little garden center in there. And if this fencing company took up a little portion of it and really didn't upset the neighborhood or be, you know, have too much trash around, we'd be okay with that.
Okay,
You know, I mean, as long as it was contained in a way where there was fencing around so that we're not looking at these dumpsters all the time. We're not looking at this.
okay. All right, terrific, thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Edge. It's interesting.
A little scary.
Good to see you, by the way. Hello, Chris Edge, 240 Kennington Road, Berlin. I knew Walpole when they were in Farmington. It essentially was a really nice display area with their items. That to me seems like if this commission decided to go in that direction, that should really be the focus, which is a nice display area with retail, where maybe they have some things there, but it's handled in a way that's more respectful of the neighbors. In addition, whomever is in the retail space, if you decide to go retail, is to, my own opinion, open up the opportunity for them, because literally they're going to be competing with Home Depot. Now, they can't stock everything Home Depot does, but I think there needs to be a realistic expectation that they can be successful. I think we've tried, the last folks that went in there, I think, and again, I was not here at the time, but looking at the list, it is very, very restrictive. Again, and I don't know if that's a discussion of if Mr. Kokomo, again, if you decide that retail is where you're going to go, if he has a tenant to come in and have a discussion, but I think it's realistic, bless you, to look at what is possible, because I don't think anybody wants somebody to go in there and fail again, because it likely will be an entrepreneur that's going to be in there, which we as a community have been great at supporting. Now, again, I think there's definitely a road to get there. If it's a subdivision, it's a subdivision, but I would just say that from what I had seen at their Farmington location, Walpole did a really good job because it was a nice display area. They do have really nice goods. From the retail side, yes, I think it would need to be some openness on who would make it work. But again, I just, those are my recommendations. If you go in that direction to look at it, and again, not to say everything at Home Depot can be sold there, but the fact that, I mean, Home Depot, it'd be nice to have somebody local to go to and actually be able to say, hey, look, can I get this? And they get it for you. Because the folks in the orange aprons, you can't actually find them. So anyway, just
So-
my 2 cents, yes.
So a question about this Walpole,
Yes.
just out of curiosity. So when you were looking at the place up in Farmington, did it have stacks and piles of its fencing there? Or was it maybe just a display area for the
No, I
fencing?
believe it was a display area, and I believe they had their stuff in the rear of the building. It was it almost looked like a Cape House, and the little sales offices inside the Cape House. I believe the materials were behind the building.
But they were outside, they were exposed to
Yeah,
the
there
elements.
was some that was outside, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I mean, I believe there was more fencing around it itself, because, I mean, you could drive around the building and see it. It wasn't something where you could see it from the road itself.
Yeah, I think my concern is what the neighbors have brought up, that they have piles of material out there. I mean, you can go out in the turnpike, remember the old Germano, I think fencing or whatever, and it gets very messy. And and if it's in a commercial area, that's one thing, but if you're surrounded by residential, you really have to take the extra effort.
Absolutely. I mean, this commission has a challenging situation to look at.
Well,
Because you need to look at what makes sense for neighbors, what makes sense for the property. There's a lot of different pieces to it.
yeah,
And I think, again, if commercial is the way to go to open up the opportunities, if commercial is not the way, then become some houses.
yeah,
But I definitely don't want to see somebody go in there and struggle, because that's a challenge in a lot of ways. That's a challenge not just for the tenant, but also for Mr. Kokomo. Because
Yeah.
again, we do want a vibrant property and a vibrant community.
okay.
Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Anyone else last minute or, yes, Mr. O'Brien, we'll come back to you and then we'll go online to see if there's anyone who wants to comment. Or I'll ask Mr. Rogan if he has any comments or questions for the applicant. Go ahead, Mr. O'Brien. Well, yeah, actually, you're already, oh,
Everybody
did you
else
already
did.
list?
He didn't do it.
No, you didn't do it, okay. Is that why you raised your hand so you could sign in? Oh. Shoot. I'm just kidding. I drink a whole Dunkin' Donuts. Here I can advertise.
Turn your mic.
John O'Brien, 12 Vineyard Drive again. Mr. Edge, which I have great respect for. Gotten along for how many years?
To the commission.
Okay, to the
It's
commission.
I'm trying to make these
So anyway,
this condensed so we can move
I'm
along.
very familiar. Walpole, the Farmington branch. There's a ball field way in the back of it, no houses. Left-hand side, no houses. Right-hand side, no houses. Everything. So they had no neighbors to complain about. How the yard was, they had a large fence, so you couldn't see it from Route 6. It was in the commercial zone, all commercial buildings to begin with. It wasn't in the residential neighborhood. Was it neat and clean when you went by? Absolutely. What it looked like before? Who knows? But
Mhm.
they had no neighbors to tend with.
Okay. Terrific, thank you. All right, Brian, do you have anything online? Just, yes, I just want to make sure my commissioner online has a chance to pipe in. Brian, do you have any questions?
Not at this moment.
Okay, ma'am, please. Doris, should I say, not ma'am. And then we'll give Mr. Kokomo a chance to respond.
I just want to say, when I think the second or third owners that had it, oh,
Just want to make sure that we have a clear recording and people online can understand. Thank you, Mr. Edge.
okay. I just want to say, I think it was the second or third owners that had it, had a couple of little businesses in there. They had an interior decorator, they had a landscaping, which was very nice, interior decorator, was a woman, and she had a business. She had her little place there because I had gone in there. It was very nice. And they had a little gift shop also, and I would go over there, and when Alan and when the owners had it, would either buy mulch or, it's just, I have no objection to that. I just don't want to, I mean, it's too small for a Home Depot, for something like a Home Depot, but I don't have an objection to that. I don't want to be um, a problem for somebody who wants to, but I just want, for the neighborhood to keep it nice, that's all, and I wouldn't be here if we didn't have the problems that we were just discussing. I wouldn't be here because I really don't care. When I say I really don't care, as long as it doesn't interfere, I keep my property nice and don't run down somebody else's property. And that's the way I want somebody that goes in there, to consider the neighborhood also. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I do. Yep, go ahead.
Ms. Miller. I recall from our last meeting, some of the neighbors were speaking about the trucks coming and dropping off the merchandise and at different hours of the morning or at night. My personal opinion on this is I don't think this is the proper location for this, as much as it would be nice to have it in town. My preference would to be, have you build 2 single-family homes
Okay.
once the back end got cleaned up from the
Yeah,
wetlands.
okay. Any other questions for Mr. Kokomo? Give him a chance to respond. All right. Do you have any comments, Mr. Kokomo, at this time?
No, Madam Chair, no, just other than I think you, Ms. Jorsey and Mr. Zigman and I have a long relationship. I've built a lot of homes in Berlin. We've been together for 20 some odd years, back and forth. I feel like I've done some really nice neighborhoods in the town of Berlin, and I I I have no qualm with constructing a subdivision here. It may be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4. You don't know, right? So that's something that I think you have a dilemma on your hands, because as a builder, I see the land and I say, okay, subdivision. But as a uh, investor, I saw, okay, this was there. It could be nice. It was nice. In the past, we were essentially an anti-new subdivision kind of community. We thought that we're building too many. So I thought, hey, let's keep it as to the neighbor's point. It is. I believe we spent a lot. Like, we pulled out 10 dumpsters of garbage. We've cleaned it up. It needs a lot more cleanup. So I think that it is a dilemma for this commission. As I grew up in Berlin. It's a dilemma for me. But I think that if you said, I think it works. Unfortunately, I appreciate what with one of the neighbors, Erica, said at 374 Chamberlain Highway. She said, I would like to see it what it was. And of course, I would say to you that would be great. In order to do so, it cannot be restricted. So it's either, do you see this as not unrestricted, but unrestricted to the garden center use with restrictions that you can implement to make sure the neighbors are happy? Fence, trees, landscaping, that kind of a formal site plan approval. But before that happens, I think that's where we need to know whether it's clear that you don't think it works, and that's fine, and I appreciate that. I think that as a commission, though, that you should think long and hard, and then I'll be back in a couple weeks, and then you can tell me what you think.
So let me just ask you a question then. And my question would be this: thinking back to the different histories of that location, Can you see it right to go back to like a garden center gift shop that it was once?
I can, but I do think as everyone's, or not everyone, but two of the three people that signed in said small landscaping company that went along with it. And that's what I see. And that's what I think I've spoken to Maureen about. The successful garden centers have that component.
Mhm.
And that's what you need to know. Has to have some component where somebody can go there, buy 6 trees, and like Mr. Edge said, some guy in orange vest will give him the 6 trees, but at least if my mother, for example, 74 years old, if she went there and she said, I want these 6 trees, but I also want them installed, she knows she could stop and get them. And I think that's the only way it works. You'll never compete with Home Depot for a shrub that they can buy for $1 and sell for $4 when you're buying it for $4 and trying to sell it for 10. It needs to be a boutique type of operation with components that separate them from the big box store.
Mhm.
And that's the only way it's going to work. And that would mean you would have to allow a small landscaper in there. That means you would have to tolerate backup alarms, but you're going to hear backup alarms if CT Grows was still there and vibrant today. That's the last
Yeah.
company that was there.
Yeah.
They had backup alarms because when you're getting deliveries and you can't stop that when you're operating. So you can't, I mean, you could restrict the times. That's about it. So I really, that's where and it is a dilemma. And I think that, that it's a tough choice. And I don't know what the best is, or I would have just pulled the application and said, okay, I'm going to build houses.
Yeah.
But I don't
So,
know.
so in your experience, Walpole, would they be able to do something like this?
So because they're a big operation, not big, but they're a regional operation. They were in Farmington on Route 4 for about 15 years, very successful. They did close, Mr. O'Brien was right, they did close another branch somewhere else. So their thought process was, let's go in between them. And I don't know where the other one was, Norwalk or somewhere. And the landlord at the other operation was like, we're going to subdivide the land or something. So there was multiple reasons why. So they decided on this location over 10 other spots. But they're not really, I was in the office 3 days ago with Maureen. I said, come on, let's go. There's no operation going on right now because we're in a state of like, I mean, they're hanging around there because there's, it's cold and there's nothing to do. But do I think that they would survive? I don't know. I mean, I don't, again, Walpole's competing against Home Depot, but they're a regional company. Their office is in Foxborough Place up in Foxborough, Massachusetts. It's a private equity company now. They claim they want to stay. They claim that they want to reopen the retail operation. All I can do is say, send you what they write to me. And if it's good faith or not, I don't know, but they're not paying me because we're in a state of like, we don't know what's going on, but they will, and I don't know what's going on. So
Tim, did you have a question? No, or yes?
So just a little clarification, for the people that this is planning and zoning. I know the wetland problem exists. I know the garbage exists. All that there was a guidelines of what could be put there and used. And it got used for more than what it's supposed to. And the wetlands got filled in and stuff like that. That all becomes wetland issue or zoning issue, zoning enforcement officer issues. It's not this commission's issue, okay? Our issue is what it can be used for, okay? And if it's a garden center and a little display area or houses, that's what our job is, okay? And then they come with a site plan and they say they're going to do this. And we said, make sure the houses aren't in the wetlands or the wetlands not affected and stuff like that. But we don't have the wetlands issues. Wetlands goes to wetlands. And we hear all that stuff here and we take that in consideration, I'm sure. But it's the operation. What happened is Mr. Hall was there, they had a nice little business going. A nice little, bushes and stuff that trees he sold, and kept it very, very clean, because his house was next door. Okay, but now you got separate owners coming in there, doing different things. And years ago, we addressed that. And we come out with this list of laundry list of what you can sell in the building. And then the person was there before, all of a sudden was there, I want to sell soap, which is not on the list. I want to sell this, I want to do that, but it's not on the list. Okay, so we brought it down to something probably that wasn't feasible. And now it's back to us. And now we gotta see what's feasible again.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, every concern that every neighbor has expressed, I understand, was next to my house. Then, you know, and if it was a hall thing going in there again, I don't think anyone have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
but that's,
okay.
it's gotta go with today. And,
Yeah.
that's where we are, and that's what our
Yeah.
cornway is. We, what do we
Okay.
do?
Ms. Jorsey?
So the more that I think about this and the more that we talk about the whole picture, I keep going back to our regulations. Because we have to uphold the regulations, and follow the definition that's in place already. And so going back to the definition that's in place, the primary use for a garden supply center is propagation, growth, storage, and or the sale of flowers, plants, shrubs, or trees. So none of what we're hearing from Walpole is that they want to get into the propagation business. And I wouldn't be comfortable telling Walpole, go ahead, you can sell fence, and someday down the road, we're going to find somebody to come up with this primary use, the propagation side of things. Because I don't think, for one, if you found somebody that would take on the propagation side of the business there on their own, I don't think they would survive. And so the initial discussion that we had when we talked about a garden center selling other things, my initial thought is great, you know, they'll be growing things and they'll be able to sell fencing and enhance the business that they're trying to build with their propagation. I'm really starting to come around to the thought that we're not in a position right now with the regulations that we have to do what you want to do. I'm kind of thinking that we should be actually tweaking the definitions, and, you know, we're at a point where it's a text amendment that should be considered if the garden center type of business and the expansion of what the garden center can do. I think as a commission, we probably are at a point where we need to reconsider those definitions, and without something that is definite, I don't see how we could approve it right now. So I think you know, unless you came to us with an application that was more aligned with what the definitions are, we would be more inclined to say, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean,
But-
I guess that's pretty good direction, but the only thing is, you know, I came here for, I think before Walpole was here, we right, didn't we come and we had a conversation? And I wish that, I mean, we had thought about it more, but I think you're right. It needs to, because yeah, I think you are right. It may need a text amendment. This needs to become a garden, and I need to say to you, I want to be a garden center with a, you know, small landscape operation that also can sell, right, whatever. I guess that's the way to go. And if that's the way to go, then then I don't know what to do and how much time we have left, because can we do it concurrently? Can we table and then make a new application for text amendment, or withdraw the app? How does it work? Because if that's the case and you want to hear it, I mean, you know where I'm coming from, and that's where I'm going to come. I'm going to come down the road because that's what I get for feedback too. I'm like you. I'm hearing it from everyone else.
If Mr. Kokomo wanted to pursue the text amendment.
Well, what I'm seeing are a couple of different options. So one, withdrawal obviously is an option.
Or withdrawal without prejudice.
Well, they'd withdraw, there would be no prejudice, there would be, because you wouldn't have made a decision.
Okay.
The, the consideration is whether the use for the commission to make is, if commission was to proceed through the process, is the consideration of whether the application meets the regulations as they're written now, not now. I want to distinguish that from the list of uses that was come up with in, a number of years ago versus the proposal you have, which has the Walpole answers in your packet as to what their business entails. Does that, does the proposal of the special permit meet those parameters of the regulations for a garden center or not? And if so, what would any conditions on it be? Or if it's accessory to, then there's, that's another determination to be made, but I haven't heard that there is a primary propagation proposal in the documents that were received as part of the application. It was talked about a bit, but it's not, unless the commission finds differently. That operation would actually be the primary. But if the idea was to change the definition of, or the parameters that are a garden center as listed in the zone, in the regulations, and pursue that, my advice to an applicant, if they come into the office, would be withdraw, submit that application. It needs a separate public hearing notice because it's a separate kind of application. And it also needs to be noticed as that's what you're just going to be voting on. You can't evolve an application in front of you into something, into a different type of application, because the public has to be able to consider that. Somebody that might not have been concerned with what the regulations say with regard to garden center may not have come, but if you're proposing changes to the garden center regulation or some other regulation, they might be involved. So that's
the
where, if that's what Mr. Kokomo wants to pursue that.
Yeah,
I would suggest the withdraw. Again, it's about the regulation and what's in the regulations. If the commission is considering the garden center uses and what that entails, and you're reconsidering that list, which is more a policy as part of the review of an application, and a review of the regulation without any text changing, I think you could do that without. But that's not a regulation. You could propose, you could ask for it to be incorporated into a regulation, and then it would require the new public.
Okay.
Did I answer the question?
I think so.
I did have a couple of other comments.
Go ahead.
Responses to other questions that came up, and a couple of them were already addressed by Commissioner Dorsey and Zygmunt's comments and distinctions. But I did want to answer a public question that came along about enforcement orders, and they can go to the owner or the entity of record that owns the property as listed on the through the assessor's office or the land records. We use that as the official town record of where enforcement orders go. and or the tenant. So, there's lots of times we know who's doing what. Sometimes they go to both. Sometimes they go, it's a call that the zoning officer makes with regard to enforcement orders. I also wanted, put the distinction of the uses zone. So as the regulations are written, single-family zones, section 5A lists permitted uses and special permit uses. And these uses, the permitted uses are and I'm only going to read a couple of them. Don't worry, I won't read the whole regulation.
Oh, don't.
But the permitted uses, single-family detached dwellings, farms, subject, blah, 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 open space, public and private, public parks, golf courses and group homes, and then the special permit uses, and of course, we had the recent amendment with regard to family daycares and stuff. And then special permit uses have listed A through O, and garden supply centers or nurseries subject to the requirements of section 11U, which are the garden center regulations, are listed as a special permit use. So it would, it's my understanding, the way I've learned to apply zoning regulations, that the property owner has the right to apply for uses in the zone that are, whether they're site plan or special permit, they have the right to that. You can't tell them they can't apply for one of the uses in the zone, and not have, fair consideration of that use. But again, it's fair consideration of the use meeting the regulations.
So,
That's what I did. I believe we're applying for consideration of a garden center, and if that was going to be running a garden center, propagating at least in the interim.
oh,
My green thumb, Diane.
oh, jeez.
But I had a call today actually from
So-
a small landscaper who wanted to sell Christmas trees in the winter and firewood, and then springtime flowers, but landscaping as well.
Yeah. Okay, so, given the information that you've collected, are you going to, is your tendency to withdraw?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop by either tomorrow or Monday, and I'll have a conversation with Maureen.
Okay,
We'll do what we'll figure it out, and I'll do that,
okay,
and maybe see you back here.
okay.
Right.
All right, fair
Thank you
enough.
for your time.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Record, I want to point out that the public hearing has a must-close date of February 22nd. We do have another meeting before the must close of this application. It could, of course, leave it
Okay.
open, but there is that opportunity. That's up to you. I just wanted to let you know what the dates were.
So we're gonna then continue the application. Okay, we'll continue it. All right, so we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue the
right.
special permit with site plan application of Tom Koch.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jorsey. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Zigmont. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, now still under public hearings, proposed text amendment of Ed Gazarian to amend the Berlin zoning regulations 6G2, Berlin Turnpike BT1, site plan uses with new subsection to allow for teaching the art of dance, and with the amendment of planning and zoning staff to include schools operated for profit, studios of dance, photography, graphic design, painting, and similar artistic endeavors. Oh, there you are. Okay. Hi, how are you tonight?
Good evening, Madam Chairman, Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name is Edward Gazarian, 1183 Worthington Ridge. I'm owner of Ridgeway Plaza, 1400 Berlin Turnpike, along with my wife Diane. Can't forget that part.
No, don't, happy wife, happy life, yeah.
I'm here tonight, ask the commission to consider the text amendment in the BT1 zone that would allow a dance studio. Talking to staff, and as we looked at it, they recommended modifying the proposed text, which would read schools operated for profit. studio of dance, photography, painting, and similar artistic endeavors. As we had the discussion, I felt as though that was something to do as far as what would work for us, and that would be something that would be beneficial for the turnpike, beneficial for the landowners, and of course, myself. So it's something that I don't know if we could say an oversight over the years, but maybe there wasn't a call for it. So it's something that I'd like the commission to consider,
Mhm.
and I'm open for
Okay.
questions or.
Okay, I have a question, Mr. Egazarian, excuse me if I may. Similar artistic endeavors. Can we be more specific with that?
Actually, anything that would be teaching someone, okay? Across the street, we have the barber shop.
Okay.
Which the barber shop also teaches students.
Okay.
People to become a barber in the profession.
Mhm.
In that case, they would go directly into have it as a profession. But I mean, it could be one of many things, learning painting, yoga. I guess the list could go on.
Yeah, all right,
Anything that would be within the arts.
okay. Tattoos?
I think that's addressed differently, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to be specific, so.
The commission has in the past directed staff that applications with regard to tattoos would be something that the staff has been directed to bring to the commission or.
Okay, but I just,
So-
because I needed clarity with that, when I saw that, that's the,
And I,
what I thought of.
and the way it's written, if I may
Mhm.
explain this a little bit.
Yeah.
So Mr. Agazarian came in with his text amendment, and the consideration that he was interested in was to allow dance studios. And as we go through the regulations, it is clustered as proposed with these other items in a bunch of other places in the regulations. And so staff is encouraging consistent language throughout the regulations, and therefore to cluster those uses and continue that cluster of uses that are in one category, if appropriate, and if appropriate in the zone that it's being proposed in. And so the wording, schools operated for profit, comma, studios of dance, comma, photography, comma, graphic design, comma, painting and similar artistic endeavors is the phrasing used where dance studios are allowed in other zones.
Okay.
And that's why we recommended that change to the text amendment,
Okay. Sounds good to me.
his proposal,
All
rather,
right.
edit to his proposal. And I wanted to notice it that way because the Planning and Zoning Commission, if they say the proposal said all those words and you took some out,
Yeah.
that needing to be reposted wouldn't be a big deal, but we were adding a bunch of words, and I wanted to make sure that the public was aware that that was what would be discussed
Okay.
and recommended.
Fair enough.
I-
Questions?
Well, I like the idea of what's being proposed, but
Mhm.
I think I share your concern with that term.
Yeah,
Just because somewhere down the road, somebody's going to interpret that in a way that we're not even considering tonight and try to push it as, I could see it
Yeah.
being problematic.
yeah.
So, and I don't know the origin of that terminology. I inherited it with the regulations that were in place when I got here. But there's two different considerations. There are two aspects of that that come to my mind. One, we have both the zoning regulation and the ordinance that relates to sexually oriented businesses that define those things very explicitly.
And how did you,
I
how
hate
did
to
you
use
know
word,
that?
But, they're
Okay.
it's definitive regulations. And then typically the argument we've heard for tattoo parlors and where, or not, no, tattoo business uses
Yeah.
has been in their, categorization where personal service businesses are.
Okay.
allowed, Like hairdressers. Some of you were on the commission, you'll recall when you, considered the medical tattoos, and I can't remember the exact terminology for those being used, and they were for restoration things that, for mm, to overcome medical
Okay.
issues. So that has been a placement,
Yeah.
has grouped that with personal service. But again, the commission has given the zoning office the direction that the commission gets to scrutinize it for whether the use
Okay.
So
meets. the
I
regs.
hate, I feel stupid asking the question. If you break it apart, the school's operated for profit. Is that a school of photography or is it would a studio of photography be allowed? Does it have to be a school?
Well,
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think it's,
Well, studios of dance are kind of on their own, so I didn't know if it's studios of photography, schools of photography.
Studio for graphic
I mean,
design.
legally,
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how a lawyer is going to look at this.
Well, let's ask a lawyer. We happen to have one. We happen to have one right here.
I was out policing the noise when you
Oh,
guys. had
Thank you
your-
for that, by the
I
way.
know.
It was
Yeah.
very distracting.
so my understanding of the question is the school's operated for profit. Is it a school operated for profit photography, school operated for private studio of dance, or is it a school operated for private studio of dance? Photography,
So I would
what?
change-
Studios or
yeah.
schools?
I would change that language if the intention is to cover studios of dance, photography, graphic design, painting, and similar artistic endeavors that are schools in those disciplines that are being operated for profit. That language is not, again, I'm sorry because I missed. So what is the intention? And I'll tell you what to do with it, with the language.
No, I just, as I was kind of breaking the sentence apart, it starts off, it's schools operated for profit, okay, right?
One cat, absolutely, like that's.
Let
So-
me make sure that-
Schools and
let-
studios.
Let me make sure we
So it'd be
didn't make a typographical error.
Photographic studio is, I think, allowed already in zone. Like the one was at the end of the ramp, well, coming up, but $72.
Yeah, that was in a
Already.
CCD zone.
That's CCD.
Yeah, that small area around.
That kind of studio, I don't see a problem
Ah.
with
It's a semicolon.
photograph, wedding,
Right, so would it be better to say schools operated for profit, including including studios of dance photography? Is that what we're talking about?
Such as.
Such as, well,
Studio.
yeah, right.
Yeah, the school has with it the connotation that there's some sort of training that may.
We have two
lead
lawyers on
to,
board. Sorry,
you know,
Jen.
potentially, right? So
I think we would want to include photography studios if it's not a school? It's kind of why I was asking the question.
Yeah, actually, school is, studio is not a problem, they're going in there and get their picture taken, that's not a problem.
Yeah, or they might get a contract from the
High school, the high school, yeah. High school.
Yeah, that wouldn't necessarily be a school, it would just be a photographer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
photographer,
Right,
yeah.
so I like the idea of having like a photo studio, but I asked the question because I wanted there to be clarity.
Sure.
There could also be classes for photography, people who want to study black and white, old fashioned 35 millimeter
Schools,
photography.
yeah.
We don't want to restrict it.
I remind everybody to talk one at a time. I'm sorry, but.
That's
we got
okay.
a Brand new administrator that's gonna be
Pulling your hair out. Okay. But anyway, just a clarification I think we just want to be careful how we're going to say it.
Because the way that it, arguably, it's any school for profit. Because it's got a semicolon after it.
Right, it's distinguished from the rest of it,
Yeah.
it's like its own sentence.
So would you recommend, between the lawyers, would we recommend different language? All right, so what do we do with this? Do we withdraw this or would we, do we say,
I
oh,
think,
June?
I
go
think
ahead.
our attorney missed two part of the conversation. The last part, similar artistic endeavors, didn't seem very limiting. It seemed open book and we were concerned about what could that entail in the future.
Day and age.
Right.
Well, that's my concern.
So I just wanted to add that since you are a great police.
We might want to strike that. But if we strike it, then it just limits it down to the specifics listed.
The area already has a preschool.
Hang on.
Couple buildings down,
Yeah, that's also called, it is a preschool, but it's, the name of it's Learning Center.
the learning center, you know.
And then you have a karate studio.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is,
karate
yeah.
studio,
But
they
I
have
guess
that.
our whole regulation,
yeah.
if you look at it, we can't possibly list every
Yeah,
use. So when you look at.
Well, I guess we should look at not listing the use, but listing, there should be something that's prohibited. What? Okay, yes, go ahead. You,
Where my situation is, okay, is I have someone wanting to rent one of the units.
yes,
And this unit has been vacant basically for years, other than the fact my son used it for a little while.
mm-hmm,
It's set up for office. There's 3 offices, conference room, and I think we all know what the market is for office.
mm-hmm.
So I have someone that's very much interested and wants to move on this. And of course, we've been working on this for 3 months. But where's Chris?
He's behind you taking notes.
Can I
Okay.
just add that I looked at, I'm flipping through the different places we have this terminology.
Yeah,
And it's a semicolon in one section and it's a comma in the other. So I do think it's something that in the long run, short-term, long run, but that staff should otherwise look to update the language throughout and handle that kind of as a separate
entity
Yeah.
from his
Yeah,
application or whatever,
or
his
maybe
idea.
come up with the
Yeah.
the best phrasing
Okay,
here and then propose to bring the others in alignment with it, whichever way works for the
Well, I do-
commission, but that then we can work to resolve the inconsistency of the terminology and the grammar.
but
I
if we
think
have,
We're all in agreement that it's not a bad thing in this zoning, really.
well, no, I don't
It's the
think,
wording of it.
yeah,
And I would like to task our attorney to come up with the wording, correct wording, and bring it back to us, because the idea of the text amendment, it's not a bad thing overall,
yeah.
you know, so the way it's read, you know, you come back to the next meeting 2 weeks and have something. Can you do it in 2 weeks?
I'd
don't
like
know.
to see if we can make this happen tonight, if possible, because Mr. Gazarian has had to wait 3 months. I have a
Well-
proposal. Look, let me just speak, because we're looking at both schools and studios, correct? I think they both make sense.
Yeah,
So schools or studios operated for profit, including dance, photography, graphic design, painting, and similar artistic endeavors. So it can be either a studio or a school. But it's still the same, includes both. And I think it would cover it. And again, that may be a way to then, again, maybe it's modified throughout the thing, but I think that covers both sides of the equation that we're looking at, correct? Studios and schools.
Different definition there.
Right.
You know, schools for profit, like different definitions. And,
Well, you're limiting the definitions, what we're trying to do. Schools or studios, including, and then it's supposed to be just those listed Types of studios.
But
That's
I
what the
think
intent is.
I think
Yeah.
there's some concern, right, about the language at the end, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the,
So
That-
and we understand, again, and I say this all the time, that zoning regulations are permissive in nature.
Meaning that if the use is not specifically permitted, it is prohibited. And when you have that language at the end that is ambiguous, that is problematic. So I think you need to decide what you want to do with that language at the end. If there's certain types of uses that are more broad, that are artistic in nature that you want to allow, then we should be identifying those additional uses.
But
Mm.
then, for
What if-
tonight, if the applicant wants something done tonight, they put a period after painting and
Strike the rest.
strike the rest of it out.
And let it go.
And if we want to add it on later on, we can. So, you know,
Maybe-
the items except similar artistic endeavors is the question more than
So
anything
it
else.
would read.
Similar to the preceding items.
You may want to identify some of the most obvious similar media, like sculpture. Um, um,
So I was
I'm
gonna
thinking
say
about
one of the-
ceramics and sculpture, and because there's
One of
those types
the-
of studios. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. One of the items that's always been interpreted as, since in my experience, been interpreted as falling in this category are also the karate and that genre of uses was similar to the studios of dance. And I think that's where the similar artistic endeavors went in that, you know, do we know all the taekwondos and all those that go in, that has been interpreted that way, for uses that have been permitted by certificates of zoning compliance.
Can you leave it
But-
there and just say excluding tattoo studios? Can we leave that in there? So, and just say excluding? Well, if
The
it's not
commission,
allowed,
the
it's
pleasure of the commission, that, you know, you
can't
can do what,
specifically prohibit.
yes.
You can't
yes.
specifically prohibit always, yes.
I also want to point out that the application as Mr. Agazarian proposed it would be, would be to add dance school, dance academy, school of dance, or any other name referring to the teaching of the art of dance. His original application asked for that text amendment. Staff added the other. So you could also act on his request as he placed it in for this hearing and or modify the language to make it more clear in the way the commission would like.
Okay, commission. Oh, June, what? June, John, what?
So then, if we include it as dance
Mhm.
in that family, would that be satisfactory with what your request is?
Well, I have no problem with that. I just wanted to be cooperated,
Yeah.
cooperation to staff.
Yeah.
And I think we all know that when you're writing up zoning regulations, that there are some blankets to it because you can't possibly put every use
Yeah.
down in those regulations. And some of it is a matter of interpretation if it comes under that umbrella. So why wouldn't I listen to staff and try to broaden, the zoning to allow things that would fit in that zone? But speaking for myself, I would possibly, or definitely, I should say, enjoy the fact that if this was passed with just dance, so I can proceed with my tenant.
Yeah. Okay. Commission. I know we're in public hearing, right?
We could do that, do it just dance and ask our attorney to come back with the final language. I
Is
mean,
that
the-
acceptable?
the
to
extended
staff?
language.
And,
Again, it's one of the options you have. Certainly is an option.
all righty.
I make a motion to,
Well, we're in public hearing.
this public hearing, sorry.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to address the commission regarding this application? Now would be the time to speak. Oh, Mr. Mahoney. Nope, you don't want to talk to us. You just want us to see that you were there. Okay, good. All right, you're next. Okay, fine. Anyone else? Questions, whatever? Okay. So now you can make your motion?
We gotta get on a public hearing thing.
Yeah, we got to get out of
Well-
public hearing.
So
So it comes up again to deliberate.
working quickly to condense his rather lengthy sentence in his proposal is alternate language that would just add schools or studios of dance.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Schools or studios of dance. Okay. Sounds good. All right, now, we're in the public hearing. No one has any other comments, so what do we have to do? We gotta close the public hearing. So who has the motion?
I'll move.
All right, we have the motion to close the public hearing by Mr. Zigma. We have a second by Ms. Jorsey for the discussion. All those in favor, guys?
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, so moved. All righty,
Thank you.
moving on to, yep, thank you. Moving on to Ms. Jorsey. Proposed text amendment FHI, studio and planning and zoning staff to amend the Berlin zoning regulations 11Q, special regulations for housing for elderly persons and 2B, definition to support affordable housing development for elderly persons and modify the definition of affordable housing. Phew, that's a complicated one. All right, what do we have?
So this is the, one, first I want to clarify that, FHI has developed this proposal at the direction of staff. And so we've considered it a staff proposal and that's why it didn't have deadline dates. However, we're trying to facilitate the goals and actions of the Affordable Housing Implementation Plan and the Plan of Conservation and Development with regard to housing. So this amendment was previously discussed. It was previously distributed as it came through the Plan of Conservation and Development Committee, as well as the in the zoning sections you had during Planning and Zoning Commission meetings. We discussed that the town is looking to, or rather, the proposal is broadening who can make an application for senior housing and to facilitate the development of senior housing besides the Berlin Housing Authority. The Berlin Housing Authority has been, in the regulations, was the only partner the town had. And this text amendment is in part, there's a couple other provisions in here as well, but is in part to add that or other housing provider. That's the first red line that's in your, in the text package you got. And that the condition of that is the housing for elderly persons shall only be permitted if developed and operated by the Berlin Housing Authority or by a private, for-profit or nonprofit entity on land sold by the town for such purposes. So that's what brings in the town as the partner, as the town may acquire some land that they can do it on. We may have a facility or land that's already been acquired. As we know, there is a project that the town already acquired the land on for this purpose. And it's, so that's what ties it together so that it kind of keeps the locational control within the town's realm. We added the next provision is the affordability requirement. And again, that is to sharpen language and add language that will have the compliance that the town is seeking for affordability. Again, I'm going to read it just because I think that's appropriate. Affordability requirement, in addition to the affordability requirements that may be imposed by the state or federal funding sources, a minimum of 50% of housing units shall be comprised of affordable housing units as defined in section 2B of these regulations. That's the definitions. And at least 25% of housing units shall be affordable units priced to be affordable to households earning 60% or less of the area median income. As you know, and as we've discussed on many occasions, the area median income is pretty high. So 80% still excludes a lot, market rate excludes a lot of the seniors that already live in town. 80% brings it down somewhat, but the 60% comes closer to a desired, a need, a niche need that has been found. Dwelling unit design, that's number 9. Deals with the ability for the units to have accessibility requirements. As we all know, elderly and or others may have needs they have. I won't read the whole thing. You've had it. And then adding in section 2B, which is the definition section of the regulations, an affordable housing definition that aligns with recommendations for what affordable housing is and the guidelines and the definitions that we need, parameters that the town is seeking to fill. So we do have Jim, who also worked hand in hand with FHI and the planning staff, and not sure if he may have something else to add.
I think you pretty much covered it. I think, obviously we know the example at hand is the Knights of Columbus property, which the town owns and was optioned to the housing authority. The option has expired. The town, I think, has an interest in doing a request for proposals, wants to get the senior housing. I think we heard through the whole affordable housing plan and POCD process, the many calls for additional senior housing. So this will be, a change that will provide more flexibility to try to see that kind of housing developed, particularly at the Knights of Columbus, and it could be at other sites owned by the town in the future.
All right, yes. Any questions?
I would like to add that we did get a letter from if I can find it easily and quickly. As a text amendment, it had to be referred to the Capital Regional Council of Governments for comments. The comment, and it was distributed, is that the Regional Planning Commission of the Capital Regional Council of Governments has reviewed this zoning referral and found no apparent conflict with the regional plans and policies or concerns of neighboring towns. Should read, staff commends the town of Berlin for its efforts to expand housing affordability, access, and choice for all ages and income.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Okay. And then we'll move
I
on.
just got one question. It's pretty simple. I agree with everything's on here. But I wonder if it should include assisted living in the elderly units. So if they want to make it assisted living development, that they could do that, and which gives them more options as a elderly, if they need assistance, like a nurse come in every once in a while, whatever. So assisted living, I think, should be maybe worded in there.
I don't know that it should be, only because if you have a nurse that's going in to visit a elderly parent or whatever, or coming in, they would just be on a visitation to the place, but they wouldn't be.
Staff. Be staff for the, well,
But yeah, but I think that that might limit it or just make it an assisted living facility. But I don't know you have staff online. If you had one unit out of 20 that required that staff, would you really pay somebody to be in that facility in case that one person needed it?
Just a service provided, you know. is
Yeah.
Town nurses or any other service provider that could come in. If the developer of the property wants to supply that as an option, I think it's a good option for the people to have that ability to have assisted living in the units.
Okay, I do know that June wants to talk. You want to talk? And I see that Mr. Millard online wants to talk as well. So which order? Jennifer first, then June, then George.
Just one quick comment, because I have a project that I worked on for a town where there are assisted living units, and I had a conversation with the Department of Housing. So if it qualifies as affordable, whether it's assisted or not assisted, it qualifies. So I don't know that it's necessarily that important to actually include that. I think that, that's something that if there's a desire to have assisted living units, that's a conversation, that would be had. I mean, they wouldn't be precluded from having assisted units.
More as right.
Well, it's, what they desire to propose. If there's an assisted component, because sometimes there's a mix, right? Sometimes there's assisted and non-assisted. And I was told, because I wanted to know, I went to the state specifically because I wanted to know, was there something special I needed to do to get, for the town in question to get credit for the assisted? And they said, it's the same analysis. It doesn't matter.
Okay. You're all set? Okay. Mr. Millard online. I think you, okay.
So first and foremost, I served with Jim on the Affordable Housing Committee. I concur with what he's saying. I think the Housing Authority has had limited opportunities to look for funding, and funding is at the key of a lot of these types of developments. I think there are a lot of developers out there, and we've had some come in town with a number of different units, the one that just came up over by Eversource and so forth. These guys have lots of contact and so forth and good rapport with a lot of lenders. They know the rules, they know where the money is. We really limit ourselves by just going with our housing authority with a bunch of volunteers trying to do this. So I think we really need to branch out to these guys who know what they're doing, know where the funding is, and know how to make this happen. The other thing, as far as the assisted living, I have a lot of experience right now dealing and helping somebody that's going through the whole assisted living, memory care units and so forth. I can tell you right now, they are very, very, very much for-profit organizations. I don't think, I haven't come across one that would ever fall in the realm of the guidelines for affordable housing. I mean, they usually are in the $5,000 to $7,000 a month type of fees because they're all inclusive. So I can't see any way, shape, or form where any of these assisted living facilities would be able to fall under that. So I think we're kind of losing sight of what we're trying to accomplish here about affordable housing if we try to incorporate that kind of language into this too. They're a whole different animal. They're really not in the same game. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Edge.
I was going to mention something about assisted living, but after listening to Mr. Millard, I don't think it's really makes sense. Yeah, no, my only thought is because we don't currently have one, could it be advantageous for us to partner with someone to be able to have one that would be Berlin affordable? Because if we had an operator, hypothetically, I can't even talk, operator in Avon at $12,000 a month, it's never going to work at Berlin. So, but no, I think it's a completely separate issue. I would agree. I think it's something that's important, but You're right.
yeah, I think it-
I have no knowledge from the dollars and cents side of it. I just know we don't currently have one in town and
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm sure that if there's a drive for it centrally located, I'm sure that any developer, as Mr. Miller had noted, that it is a for-profit. And it's a large profit, you know.
I'm still
line.
pursuing one. I'm just trying to figure out the where. So,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Very good. No, I
It's,
just, Mr. Miller got into what I was going to say. So thank you.
yeah, excellent. Thank you. Anything else from the commission? Yes.
Just for clarity, because I just want to make sure no one got confused if they haven't dealt with services before. But any housing unit, you know, as a resident could contract for services to be brought to their home, such as a visiting nurse to come in and provide services. And that it would not preclude residents of senior housing to have those services either. The Marjorie Moore, the visiting nurses, and I'm sure there's other nursing organizations as well, but certainly the Berlin visiting nurses, I've heard speak of them going back there. You know, they have clients back there. You would have clients where the clients live for that kind of services. I just want to make sure that
Okay. Any other questions?
misunderstood.
Come on. Anything? Brian, anything? Okay. So we're in the public hearing. Is there anyone else who wants us to address the address the commission regarding this application? Okay, hearing none.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right, motion to close by Ms. Jorsey. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Daly. Further discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved. All right, going on to deliberations, or do we want to, because we have folks who are still waiting, for a decision, can we maybe, change up the order? Can we adjust the agenda? Because I would like to do that so these good folks can get home.
The only other thing I will add is besides the deliberations, one of the groups in the audience is something I was going to bring up in planners' comments with regard to a modification to Mr. Diadio's plan. So
Okay.
it's also one of the items that was going to be under planners' comments. I
Okay.
Bring that up. So just to let you know who's sitting here.
Okay, all right, so
I'm not
what
treating
what
them.
order we want to take this in? Well, Mr. Kokomo is basically,
Yeah,
he's-
so I'll make a motion to move the proposed text amendment of Ed Egazarian to amend Berlin zoning regulations from item C under deliberations to be item A under deliberations.
okay. So we'll take that one first, and then do you want to do the FHI, or do you want to do the Kokomo before, or do we want to go
Well,
to?
Kokomo's continued, so.
Okay, Kokomo's continued, he's, okay. Or do we want to talk about, well, either one?
Sure, I'll make a motion to move item D, proposed text amendment of FHI Studio and Planning and Zoning staff to be item B under deliberations.
Okay, and do we want to then add an item C, which would be for Mr. Adadio? Or can we?
Are we voting on them
It's
separately
actually
or all once?
necessary
Okay,
Because really the first item is the continuation as well, so. we can-
all right, so let's go to,
Okay.
let's go to item A then, which is the proposed text amendment. Oh,
We need a vote?
oh, yes, I'm sorry. We have the motion. Do we have a motion by Ms. Jorsey? Do we have a second by Ms.
Second.
Daly? Further discussion on moving those items about? Then all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, those opposed, so moved. So going on to item A, which would then be the proposed text amendment for Ed Egazarian to amend the Berlin zoning regulations 6G2, Berlin Turnpike, BT1, site plan uses with the new subsection to allow for the teaching of the art of dance and with the amendment of the planning and zoning staff to include, what did we say? We said it was going to be
Schools or studios of dance.
schools or studios of dance, thank you. And that's it. So, how do we? So your motion is to accept that, Mr. Zigma? Okay, we have a motion to accept it as modified. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Millard. Further discussion? Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. proposed amendment text of FHI. Congratulations. Studios and planning and zoning staff to amend the Berlin zoning regulations 11Q, special regulations housing for elderly persons, and 2B definitions to support affordable housing development for elderly persons and modify the definition of affordable housing. Do we have a motion from the commission?
Approved.
A motion to approve by
Second.
Mr. Zigma, second by Ms. Jorsey. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved. Going on to,
Back to A.
back to A, which would be no, wait a minute.
Well, now it's C.
Now it's C, which would be the applications of Little House Living LLC prepared by Christopher J. Smith Esquire, Alter and Pearson LLC, submitted pursuant to the Connecticut General Statutes 8-30, Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals. Deliberation of the application will be continued due to the term of pending stipulation for judgment. An extension has been provided by the applicant. No court date has been set for the stipulation, and this is effective for I, which is the proposed zoning text amendment. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, to create the new 11 EE planned residential infill development, inclusionary multifamily residential use with the housing opportunity or workforce housing component. And double I, application for the site plan approval to permit a 20-unit multifamily residential community on real property known as 1676 Berlin Turnpike, map 22-1, block 114, lot 10. Okay, we need to do anything? Oh, Miss.
So I would request that, you continue the deliberation on these two applications, to your next regular meeting on, February the 15th. I will be meeting with, the Inland Wetlands Commission next week.
Okay,
That's, kind of final.
excellent.
So hopefully we'll.
All right, so Mr. Zigma has a motion to continue to February 15th. Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, boy, we have a tie. Let's give it to Ms. Jorsey. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved. All right, now planners' comments. We're back up to the last section of the agenda. And we have Mr. Daddio.
Well, I
Well,
just assume that planner comments and then they're here in case you need to speak with them, but
okay,
they've come in, Mr. Diadio has brought in his architectural plans and construction drawings and for permitting of the first couple of residential units. As we've reviewed them and gone through them, we found modifications made to the floor plans of the end units that are, and I'm gonna bring up the picture in a minute. Each building has a gable end with kind of a tower, and the modification was made to those top floor units in each that provided a mezzanine inside, or we commonly call it a loft. I would have called it a loft in those apartments. Open loft. And so, and a window up in the peak. So the scrutiny provided to it was both from the building inspector's standpoint of adding stories or not, et cetera, as well as the zoning analysis as to whether any stories were being added or other change, and whether that change would require the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have worked really hard going through definitions, building code, et cetera. And if you bear with me for 1 minute, I'm just gonna bring up the pictures, I hope. So I gotta share my screen. Hold on. I got the picture. I'm just not sharing it with you guys yet. There we go. So this is the picture of the of the last PowerPoint you saw when the hearing closed with regard to the application. But you're here now. And so I would say that, yeah, so the new picture, and I have those as well. Do we have copies of those? I think, look through here and see if I have the copies from, yeah. Sure, I think so. Can he hand out copies? So right here, if you look up at the screen, there's a new window.
I show Maureen first?
Yeah, I have copies of that stuff, so.
And I just put a little packet together showing showing the window in the front.
I'll explain the whole thing. I got it.
I've
Cause
got
this
stuff
is
that-
very similar to the thing, so. Yeah, I was getting it from, and I'm wondering if we left the prints on the table downstairs when I came up because I was having a technical issue. No, they're these. It's basically this. So that's all right. So the fourth floor unit shows a mezzanine. The zoning regulations provide for 4 stories in this zone. So we went to the definitions and the in our zoning regulations, and the definitions for story. Hold on one second, because I have that in a separate screen. Give me 1 minute. Hopefully it won't change up there. He was supposed to put it in here. It's not in here. He was gonna put it in this envelope. Okay, so we have definitions of story, and I'm sorry, that was part of the packet. I don't know where it ended up.
So,
It's gonna get put in here.
so basically,
These are what is remain consistent. The definition of story is to remain consistent. In our regulations, it says to remain consistent with the Connecticut State Building Code. The mezzanine level that you'll see on the second page, third page, we get to this page. It flips back up. This page. You have 4 different units. It depends on the, its location as to whether it's oriented this way, or this way. So they're this is each in a different location in the buildings, in each of these peaks. 4th floor. And then this is what's above it, which is open to below. Staircase going up or down to the fourth floor, the living unit that has the bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, etc. Open with an enclosed mechanical room, and then they're proposing to box out these 2 areas under the eaves for all practical purposes. That's what we'd call it. So therefore, the mezzanine is less than half the square footage of the apartment floor that was approved, and doesn't therefore meet the definition of story, of a story by building code. If it was more than half, or it was enclosed, it would meet the definition, but it doesn't. And that was the exercise we actually got to at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So what he's requesting, and again, if you want him to speak to it, he can, but it is to make these end units in each building, the 4th story units in each building that are within the gabled ends, a more luxurious apartment. Not adding bedrooms, not adding enclosed space, but adding a mezzanine or a loft, extra square footage in that apartment. My concern when we first studied the plans and Alexa looked through these plans tirelessly, is that they were adding a story and the maximum number of stories is 4. However, we're not finding it meets in our interpretation of story. And I just only feel comfortable with the commission confirming that. And the second part of that is it is a modification to their floor plan. So therefore, you approved 200 units with the floor plans that you were given and you reviewed. This changes the floor plan by adding lofts in these end units. And it also, as he shows on his architectural plan or his elevation plan, it changes the architectural to add a window. And, it's a change to the architectural plan. This is a big project. I didn't think staff should be making these decisions without bringing it to you. If you can, either decide whether we're interpreting as you would interpret. That's one step. The second step, or it wouldn't be compliant with zoning, and that would be a different issue, and he'd have to modify his plans. And determine whether these changes to the floor plan and the elevation rise to the level where do you want to see a site plan amendment for it, or if that's can be done as a discussion item and authorized. There's a minor modification.
Okay.
Height of the building, not changing.
I would, for the record, I would like the applicant to confirm that, but that is my understanding that this is in the existing approved peak.
So basically, they're taking part of the attic area and making it off.
Thank you, Maureen, you did a great job. My name's Peter Diadio from First Service Realty, of course, the owner of the project. You've seen me in front of you quite a few times, and I appreciate your taking the time to see us today. And as Counselor says, that we have this building mass that was permitted in 2001. And so that building that you see is the same building that we have proposed in the past. It's the same elevation, the same height, the same floor plan, except that that big gable that we're building is a huge structure. And so during the, final building plans, we looked at this and says, well, what can we do with this? We're building it anyways. So to make, if you recall, every floor has the exact same apartment layout, right? 2 studios, 2 one-bedroom with den, 3 one-bedrooms, 1 a little bit larger, and 2 bedrooms. Those 2 bedrooms with the den, two bedrooms or 2 baths, and the 1 bedroom with dens are 2 baths. So those are larger units, except the top floor. And here's where this change comes. It says here, we're building this anyway. So is it smart to put in a window and make the loft accessible? The loft's there anyways, right? Because our HVAC unit is in it. So we thought that that would be smart. So we would have an apartment that might be a little more luxurious, might get a little more rent. And it helped us out on the overall rent scheme, because as you know, part of this is, a big part of it is financing and costs. And so, but that little extra income helped us out with our financing. So as you look at your picture, the building's the exact same, except on the first page, I have the windows and the 2 peaks. If you look on the second page, I showed the rear of the building, because really it's 4 windows per building we're adding, 1 on each peak. So the rear shows, the back drive-ins where the parking is, and then the 2 peaks, there's 2 windows in the peaks as well. And those are really the loft units. On the next page, 301-R shows you the loft in the roof line. So that mezzanine, according to building code, they call it mezzanine. And what Maureen refers to as loft is how I would rent it, with a loft, the 2-bedroom with a loft. Because if you look at some of your new apartments today, they're quite nice. And that loft, as a matter of fact, on a personal note, I'm just buying an apartment in Berlin, and it has a beautiful loft. I'm going to put my office in it, right behind the, what's it called? The Casamia, right behind the Casamia. And it's a nice feature. But if you can see the stair coming from the 4th floor up to the attic, it's really an attic. It's under the roof. And without the window, it's a little dark, but with the window, it brings in a lot of light. It's a loft area. But you'll see the side cut, you can't see it because it's below roof line. That's a cut sheet, the picture right below there. So because you still can't, because it's, like you say, it's not a story. But I added page 5 here. It might be called page, I'm on page 5. I mixed them up, 4 and 5. Shows the floor plan. And the red area is the area that, you know, is like, I think 350 square feet. So it's like 30 or 40% of the total apartment, which averts the definition of a story. If it was more than 50%, they'd call it a story or a half story in the building code. And then the last page, again, just shows another cut sheet showing the 4 stories that we had approved, and of course, the lower level, which is the parking. So the building hasn't changed, the parking hasn't changed. We haven't added bedrooms. We've added a little luxury space there and hoping we can get a little more rent for those special units.
Okay, thank you. Diane, I think you had a question, then June. Yeah.
Yeah, just one question. Will this change cause any changes to locations of mechanicals to have them be outside of the structure? So the unoccupied areas will accommodate that? Is that the intent?
Unoccupied area that you see on the floor plan, actually, that little square in there is the HVAC unit.
So we're not going to see weird things unexpected sticking out of the roof or?
I hate that.
No,
Okay.
no, that's not the case. That's actually what the area is built for. It's built for mechanicals, but since it's there, we said, why can't we make it a little nicer? That's what we.
June.
Curiosity about emergency exiting, that's an additional floor you have to come down. Does that change any emergency pattern?
question,
Is
right.
that something we need to have the fire department look at or anything?
It's a good question, and of course, the fire marshal has looked at it, and so has a design team. And since it's an internal to the unit, just like you would have a second floor in your unit, the distance to entry doesn't change. But also remember, we're a fully protected building. We're sprinklered, and we have, you know, our enclosures in the elevator and stairwell area are 2-hour enclosures. Our separation from the lower level to the upper level is a 3-hour enclosure, and it's fully sprinklered. So it's a good question, but it does not put us outside the building code and the fire code as well.
And just my question would be, how many units are affected by the change?
2 in each dormer, 4 in each building.
Okay,
For a total of,
Well, there's 5 buildings, so it's 4 times 5, 20 altogether. The
Wow.
unit count hasn't changed. It's just that all those units on a top floor
become luxurious.
are a little
Yeah.
nicer.
Okay, June.
Sorry, and you said fully sprinklered building, and that would include that extra loft area. There would be sprinklers.
It's the whole building
Okay.
and the garage.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
anyone
even
over
the-
here? John, do you have any questions? Anyone, any questions? Go ahead.
One more question. Loft, I think it's a beautiful thing. It's a plus to the unit. But with lofts seem to always get a bed put in them, you know. And my thinking would be, there's gonna be a third place, third bedroom. Okay, and I guess the only way I could think of to eliminate that loft being used as a bedroom, put it in the lease that you can't use it as a bedroom.
Well, we certainly will do the best we can to eliminate the amount of people in each unit.
Yeah.
And of course, remember that loft is open, so it's not a closed-in wall, so, but of course, you know, they can put a bedroom in the dining room.
Kids will love it.
You know what I mean? So,
Kids love with their little bed up there. You know, I mean, that's just the obvious thing.
Yeah.
So when are you starting to build it?
well, as soon as you guys say okay, because it's just a building permit issue, and that's where it came up.
Okay, all righty.
Well, gas
Okay,
station's going up.
well,
We're-
happy for you, Tim. Happy for you, Tim. This is why he's before us. So are there any other, okay, hang on. Are there any other questions or comments from staff?
no, I just.
I
wanted-
got a question, Commissioner Rogan.
Yes, Mr. Rogan.
So I'm all
Welcome to the
for the
party.
improvement. Yeah, so all for the improvement. It sounds like a good one. But I know there's an affordability component to this project, and part of affordability is equal disbursement of units across the affordability spectrum. So you're talking 20 units now that are of a new design. Is there going to be affordability aspect to these new units?
Well, sadly to say, no, we definitely, as you recall, we distributed 40 apartments over all the use styles. And I think I'm quite sure they're required to be labeled in our building plan. So there is a percentage of the lofts with affordability, 80%, 30%. 80% of medium income, 30% of their total income applied towards the unit. So it's a big discount for that particular unit, but we'll find the right candidate, with the right amount of people, and they'll have a nice apartment there at a substantial discount.
So that is a requirement, is that the units, as Commissioner Rogan commented, that each type of unit has an equal distribution with the affordability throughout. I know I didn't say that quite as eloquently, but.
So there's 20 altogether. So I think our 40 in the total project, 40 compared to, so I think it's 20%. So 20%, so there'll be 4 that are in the affordable category. Did I make the math correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to note, I brought up on the screen that definition of story that I talked about being consistent with the Connecticut adopted building code of what a story is, and therefore, because it's consistent with building codes definition of story, and it isn't a story by definition in the building code, that's what staff's looking to you to confirm from the zoning standpoint. And then whether, at this point, this is not a site plan amendment. This is a modification for the staff to either handle or you to determine a site plan amendment, and will be posted properly.
Okay.
Motion staff handles it.
All right, we have a motion that staff would handle it. Okay, by Mr. Zigma. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, by Ms. Daly. Further discussion on this? Then all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? So moved. Okay.
Thank you very much.
No
I
problem.
appreciate it. I look forward to start construction on top of our.
Well,
foundation.
but not
Foundation.
tonight, not tonight, please.
Our
Call that the
foundation-
Berlin Wall now.
Our foundation at number 5, building number 5 is complete. That's the one, looks at the Berlin Turnpike on the south side of the road. And our foundation for
said
number
already.
1 is about 1/3, I'd say, complete.
Mhm.
So, when we get a building permit issued from Frank, we'll start on building 5.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Foundation built.
Yep. All right, now we have the option for, I guess, executive session. All right, which will be a long one, right? Okay, that'll be a good thing. As I'm trying to get my commission home. Quick recess as we go into executive session. And once we go into now, Mr. Rogan, we're going to get in touch with you. Good night. The commission is going to go into executive session and for the purpose of discussing some litigation. And then we will be adjourning after we exit executive session, but there'll be no decisions or whatever that will be cool. Exactly. All right. So for those who are joining us by Zoom, we will say good night. And we will get in touch with Brian Rogan to bring him back in when we've exited out. Thank you and good night, everyone.
So no, we need a motion.
Oh, motion.
Yes, so need to invite.
And well, oh, yeah.
Maureen,
Well, whoever's making
Jennifer.
the motion is going to do that.
Well, but we need to know.
Yeah. Okay.
Alexa.
Alexa Stain, right? Yep, Alexa Gorlin.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make the motion that we go into executive session to discuss the status of pending litigation, 554 Berlin Turnpike Associates LLC versus Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission in the town of Berlin, and possible action relating to same. And also to consider whether to convene an executive session to discuss the status of the pending litigation at 554 Berlin Turnpike Associates LLC versus Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission and Town of Berlin. And that we invite Maureen Giusti, Jennifer Coppola, and Alexa, what's your last name?
Gorley.
Gorley.
Relic.
Gorlick.
Excuse me, I had it wrong. All right, we have a motion and it's 10:05. And do we have a second? Second by Mr. Zigma. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll be talking to you soon, Brian. Are you gonna call him?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got to run to.
Yeah, you're gonna take a sec? Okay.
We're